Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
Welcome welcome all to SimSpeed TV this Sunday evening for a slightly truncated broadcast of V8SCOPS Round 6 for 2025 at Michelin Raceway Road, Atlanta. Been looking forward to this round for a very long time. We do apologise for not being able to bring you Split 2 action, but we are going to be live for a fantastic Split 1 event here today. Bringing it to you live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch and Kick. It's me, Reese Gardner, with David Haynes alongside me in the comms box, Dan Yeaman behind the scenes, producing here on SimSpeed TV. Tell you what, David, Road Atlanta is a track very close to my heart and very close to many people's hearts in the sim racing scene. One of the most popular tracks on iRacing, and for very good reason.
Great track in a whole heap of different cars, plenty of history, particularly with Petit Le Mans, the Whittington brothers. Stories on stories around this place. Often creates great racing with its S's, but also its really long back straight. And it's just over 2.5 miles, so it's actually very similar in length to the Daytona Oval or the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, but in shape, it's nothing like them.
Absolutely. Zooming on into the southeastern United States, the great state of Georgia, and well, not too far from the likes of Birmingham, Nashville, Memphis, etc. I mean, the United States is very big, but we're Australian. We know big distances like no one else. And Road Atlanta, just across the road from the former Lanier National Speedway, built in the early 1970s. Opening in the late 60s, in fact. Built in record time, this circuit, and the only real change to the layout has been the addition of the 10A and 10B chicane down at the bottom of the hill, plus a crest out of turn 7 being lowered in the late 1990s. Other than that, the layout we're racing on is pretty much the same as the track's always had, and I think big spots for overtaking will be through turn 6 and 7 down at 10A and 10B. We've seen drivers make moves at turn 1 as well. I think turn 3 and turn 5 are going to be the ones to really look out for today.
Yeah, for a couple of reasons. We noticed in Split 2 that a few drivers are flying across the crest and cutting turn 3, getting slowdown penalties from that, and turn 5 is deceptively tricky. When you look at it from on high here, it looks like a 90-degree left-hander, but the curbs are really steep. There's a curb on the exit that you sometimes bounce across and get super unsettled, and the elevation, the height of the curbs, all of that makes turn 5 really difficult, and therefore passing into turn 6 can actually be possible.
Yeah, indeed. A bad run up the hill can make all the difference out of turn 5 for any driver in this field. And pit entry is also something to look out for as well. You see it winds down the hill on the inside of turn 12 over on the bottom left of the screen. And there's a concrete wall to greet you if you go too deep. Getting pit entry right is super important at this track. Got to make sure that you practice it. Well, the racing for tonight is going to come across many laps of this circuit. We have a 50 lap race up for today, with a 2-hour time limit, 75% fuel tank restriction with 2 compulsory pit stops. We are, of course, going to have qualifying start things off for the night with the usual 2-group format that we'll be going for there. So at a track where it's very easy to get balked on a qualifying lap, I think the drivers will be very grateful for that.
Yeah, always big grids for V8SCOPS, and like we just pointed out, hardly over 4 kilometers this lap, so it is pretty tight, pretty congested, all things considered.
Yeah, for sure it is. And the race length being 50 laps will certainly be difficult for sure. It's going to be a tough one for the drivers out there. And, the latest in many schedules, in many tracks on this schedule that will prove to be highlights. And speaking of schedules, we do have an update to the season to come. Round 8 was initially going to be at the Circuito de Navarra, a free track on the iRacing service, but we are proud to announce that with its recent release in the 2025 Season 3 build, the Bend International Layout is going to take the place of Navarra on the season calendar, so we'll be racing in Australia in a couple of rounds' time.
Yeah, fantastic. Good thing that you don't have to wait the whole year into the next calendar year to put an Australian track into this schedule. It's what these cars are for. It's a place that's building a little bit of history with these cars and these type of racing. So good to have it in shortly, and we can all look forward to it.
Absolutely, I've been driving quite a bit on the Bend in the first couple of weeks of the new season. Really enjoy the international layout, and as we've seen in real life, it is a perfect fit for the supercars. So get ready for Shell V-Power Motorsport Park at the Bend to come to your screens here on SimSpeed TV in the very near future. Race server is up, and that means that we can shortly take a look at the standings, but before we do that, the season to come. So round 8, of course, on the 3rd of August, so we will have to wait a little bit, 2 months to be exact, to see the Bend race, but it's going to be a fun one. And then we go to Okayama and Motegi for a couple of flyaway rounds in Japan before we end the season with the Enduros at Phillip Island, Bathurst, and Sandown. Brilliant calendar, and we've only just crossed the halfway point of it. So let's see what we can do to find our way through to the standings coming into this round. Now, it's been quite a competitive V8SCOPS season for the time being. I don't think we'll be able to quite bring you the standings just yet, but we will see a bit more to come here before we get things started. We do have a list of previous winners at the Road Atlanta circuit, and it really is a who's who of Australian sim racing, the likes of Josh Rogers, Josh Muggleton, Jared Filsell, Cooper Webster, Brady Myers, Brody Kostecki, and of course James Scott. We have 2 Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Super Cup champions in that winners list. So if you win here at Road Atlanta, you're usually destined for great things.
Statistically, you win here at Road Atlanta, you've got like a 10% chance of winning the Bathurst 1000 in a Chico roll car. So take that too.
Absolutely. Brody Kostecki in 2023 absolutely lighting the time screens up. Madison Down, the first Road Atlanta winner and its first appearance on the calendar in 2016. We will see if he can add to his ever-growing victory list this year in V8SCOPS. Madison currently in the server and awaiting the end of that practice session. But James Scott as well, he's going to have quite the challenge here. He has been showing the form that we've seen a lot from him in the past, but luck hasn't entirely fallen his way in 2025. So we'll see what goes on from there. Practice is upon us, and it should be just about time to see what's what in the session to come. First lap times being set in practice. Rehan Lienage leading the top of the 6 drivers who have set times in the session so far.
Yeah, the other thing to factor in the weather. So 11:20 a.m. In this server at the moment, but it'll sort of move along as we get to qualifying in the race. It's hot weather with the sun out and in the middle of the day, 38 degrees Celsius on the track. So it stays hot. That's potentially high tire wear. And then we know that the tires on these cars are very sensitive, not to, wearing down and wearing off and getting thinner, but to their temperature. And if you can keep the tires cool, you often keep them grippy.
Yep, that's been a defining factor of these cars for many years now, and it doesn't seem to have changed all that much with the advent of Gen 3 cars on iRacing. But the lack of downforce that these cars produce here, especially compared to the previous generation of cars, means that we are obviously going to see lap times much slower, but it means they're going to slide around more. Especially on the run down to turn 5 through that sort of one-line-fits-all train on your way down to the bottom of the hill. I'm looking forward to seeing how sideways they get.
Well, it's an incredible amount of curb usage between 2, 3 and the S's, and then 5 and the exit of 5, where there's almost like a tabletop curb that they climb over. Reminds me of the second part of the Senna S at the start of the Adelaide Street Circuit, for the amount of, gee, that's a lot of curb, and they just climb straight over it. And sometimes it's a bit sort of RNG, how you hit it, how your car flies and lands, and that whole section will be really challenging throughout the race.
Yeah, it absolutely will. Well, Brady Myers has taken the top spot in practice from Rehan Lienage. So the Trans-Tasman Racing Camaros are certainly looking nice and tight here at Road Atlanta, with 3 cars in the top 5. Myers first, and actually we're going to make it 4 in the top 5, with Josh Anderson just putting a time in for 2nd in the session, Madison down in 4th, and Jake Burton in 5th. So Trans-Tasman Racing have come to fight here today.
Yeah, we've also got our 3 drivers that have been promoted into Split 1 by finishing on the podium for Split 2 that just wrapped up. So Ashan Colangelo back in Split 1 again, and Angus Lawford and Paul Young making it to Split 1 off the basis of their podium in the Split 2 race that just wrapped up. A few of them haven't actually jumped immediately out on track to do their warm-up. They might actually be pretty warmed up after Split 2 and just take the 15-20 minute opportunity to, get a coffee, get a water, whatever it may be, and they won't feel like they need all of this practice and warm-up before we get into qualifying, which is going to be split groups again.
Yeah, for sure it is. There's no substitute for track time, obviously, but sometimes you just need a little bit of a sit out before you get back in the saddle, and you can come back with some renewed focus. I certainly know that when I have been driving quite a bit, a break is often what it takes for me to get the results that I need, and I think that's going to be the same for our Split 2 podium. 10 minutes remain in practice, and those are the standings so far. Myers and Anderson, 1 and 2 for Trans-Tasman Racing, but Rehan Lienage in the Phoenix Racing Team 79 is always in the mix. Ryan O'Sullivan also showing up here for Evolution Racing Team, and putting himself 4th in practice. Looking good for the time being. And we see Bo Albert jumping in for a drive as well. Haven't seen him in a couple of rounds, but he is there in the number 06 ERT Mustang, putting himself solidly in the top 10, just ahead of Logan Barnett and Dominic Ferraris, another driver that I haven't seen in a very long time. I remember seeing Dominic last in GT3, and that was a few years ago. So good to see that he's back in the saddle for V8SCOPS.
There we go. And that top of the timing board shuffling around a little bit. What I'm noticing about the speed trap speeds in this practice session is it is north of 270 k's an hour. A lot of 271. Logan Barnett managing 274, whatever gear ratio that he was running and whatever toe he had going on. The peak speeds on this track are just as you go downhill right before you brake into 10A and 10B chicane that Ferraris navigates right now. Peak speeds are absolutely not through the S's and turn 3, but for me, that's one of the most exciting places to watch these cars, is this sort of first 1 and 2 sectors of the lap.
Yeah, it's all about keeping up your mid-corner speed here as Ferraris gets a little sideways coming up the hill to turn 3, bouncing off the curb as Anderson goes to the top in the practice session. First driver into the 1 minute 21 second bracket tonight.
Well, look at the snap on the curb there.
Yeah, that's massive. Yeah, Ferraris, of course, probably doesn't have access to the same sort of setup library that the top teams have built up over the course of the season. So he may be struggling a little bit just to get the car tuned to his liking here. You've got to have a car that rides the curbs well at Road Atlanta and changes direction in a stable manner. And the Exeter Turn 7, which he's just gone past, is perhaps the most important acceleration zone on the entire lap, because you've got this long back straight to keep your occupation, and then the run down to 10A and 10B on the brakes earlier than I remember from seeing the previous generation of cars. Nice and gentle exit out of 10B, and he's going to take this opportunity. He's not going to take the opportunity to go to the pits, committing to the end of the lap there and across the line. 1 minute 22.325, which is only a thousandth slower than his fastest time of the session so far.
And even with that early braking into turn 10, he was still doing 269 kilometers an hour towards the end of the straight there. So yeah, these cars, more than ever, decent straight line performance, long braking distances, perhaps a little challenging with the throttle, and curbs and how you use them look like it's still going to be so important.
Yeah, so it's one thing to tackle the track, it's another thing to tackle the strategy. The fuel tank restriction, of course, making it 2 compulsory pit stops to get to the end. You haven't, from between laps 2 and 49, to jump in and get those 2 stops done. We saw in the V8SCOPS supports category, they had a 2 compulsory pit stop format as well. Some drivers elected to take a very long stop at one of their tours through pit lane, and by virtue of that shorten their second one. We're going to be seeing that tonight, I'm sure. And remember that V8SCOPS rules dictate to satisfy the compulsory pit stop requirement, you only need to come into your pit box and get up on the jacks. You don't have to take fuel and tyres, you just get straight off the jacks and continue on if you want to. But as
don't
long
have to
as
change your anti-roll bars either.
No, you don't, although that is now an option in these cars, as we were talking about before we went live, David. Latest update to these cars, a little bit more tunability through the race.
Yeah, and so my reading and understanding of that is that in any stop that's longer than 25 seconds, you can change your roll bars. But if you are only taking 20 seconds of fuel and you want to change a roll bar setting, then it's going to hold you that extra 5 seconds. So in a long stop, go change your rear anti-roll bar if you're looking for more point or you're looking for more preservation on the rear tyres. But if you see taking, and what we have seen, sort of 10 to 15 second stops, then you're not going to get an anti-roll bar change for free in that time, and so you're probably not going to do it. We were hypothesizing that really for 500 kilometer and 1,000 kilometer races like we've got coming up later in the calendar is when you're going to use that sort of thing, because you'll have more weather variability, going from really cold to really hot or really hot to really cold, and also more likelihood that you change from slick tires to wet weather tires or back and forth. And that's where you might go, yeah, it's raining really heavily, I'm going to wet tires, I would like a slightly softer rear anti-roll bar as well.
Yeah, so just adding a couple of extra options for the drivers, extra ways they can get the performance they need out of these cars. So continuing the strategy talk for just a moment, I think it's unlikely that we're going to see drivers just go for that. Oh dear. All right, that's
hit the ghost.
TTR. Yeah, one of the TTR cars coming a cropper quite spectacularly on the start-finish straight there. I think we're going to be seeing tyres at both stops tonight for just about everybody in the field, because you mentioned earlier that Road Atlanta is a track that is traditionally pretty rough on tyres, and the heat-related degradation of the pace in these tyres is massive in these cars. So try and get fresh rubber on at any opportunity you can.
There's a couple of critical traction zones, like off of turn 7, off of turn 10B. So that's where having really good rear tyres will be helpful. And in sports cars around here, your front left tyre takes a beating as you carry it, trailing a little bit of brake through turn 1, through turn 6, through parts of the S's here, and then through parts of turn 10 as well. So the front left tyre can wear significantly here, and the rear tyres always get, worn on these cars when you're racing them at their limit.
Yeah, for sure they do. It's difficult to negotiate that. Difficult to negotiate just about anything in these cars.
And it's getting hotter too.
Yeah. Track temperature going up to 39 Celsius. Temperature creeping up ever so slightly. So we'll see how hot it gets when we get to the race in round about 40 minutes time. 2 minutes left in practice. And Zach Rattray White recently putting in a fantastic time to put himself in the top 2. Brady Myers just running a faster time there, putting himself in 3rd. Ryan O'Sullivan remaining in 4th. It's looking competitive out there. Margin between Anderson and Rattray White. In fact, the margin between the entire top 4, only 0.08 of a second. That's pretty significant.
Yeah, it's a quick lap with the long back straight. There's also not that many corners. I mean, added up in my head, I think we're looking at 5 braking zones total for the lap. So it's topical. It's a little bit like the Red Bull Ring, for example, where it's a really quick lap, challenging in some places, but there's only a few corners and braking zones, and you need to get all of them absolutely right every time. You can have some wiggle room and flexibility with the Nordschleife where you don't completely get this corner right, but you make it back in some other places around the lap. Not here at a track like this. Every corner perfect every time, or you're not going to be on pole, you're not going to be in the top 10, and you're not going to be competing for the win.
Try and get as many points as you can in the mid-phase of the season here. Drop rounds will be taken into account in a few rounds' time as well. So we shall see if the drivers do preserve that. There goes Madison down to the top of the standings, down to a 121.6 in practice. That is quite impressive, and well, 3-time champion of this category, and also incredibly successful in the Logitech G V8 Pro Series. Madison Down will stamp his authority on this track once again, at least in practice. We'll see if he can carry that pace through to qualifying. Speaking of qualifying, it is upon us. We're about to see just how fast these drivers can go around here on a track that is continuing to heat up. I'm monitoring the track temperature to see if there's any change to it when the session switches over. And we're waiting for that data to come in.
Becomes
41.
Oh, yeah, there we go.
So 41 degrees Celsius for qualifying. Reminder that it's 15 minutes each for the two groups here. Positions 16 to 32 in pre-qualifying, plus the podium from Split 2 will make their way out on track for the first session here. And we already see cars making their way out onto the circuit. Leading the charge is our friend Ryan Jones, category manager for TCR Australia and Trans Am in the real world. Does a lot of good work for Australian Racing Group, but loves to have a steer.
Weekend. Friday, he flipped the bird at me. Saturday, I gave him a hug. Sunday, we were all good. Got to stay sun smart at Queensland Raceway too.
Absolutely, you do. It's good to hear that all it takes is a little cuddle to get back in Ryan Jones's good books. Let's see if this first lap is going to be in his good books.
And this is my thoughts about qualifying as well, as you spoke about, how quick of a lap it is around here, the high average speeds. 15-minute session, you actually will get a chance to get quite a few runs, quite a few laps in. Obviously, Ryan Jones got the whole track ahead of him, starting a flying lap right now. But if this one isn't perfect, then there will be a couple more opportunities.
Oh, a little bit wide of the apex in turn one. Yeah, maybe a bit too much load on the front tyres there, maybe turning in a bit too late, but through turn 3, he'll keep committing to this lap, ride the curbs, get the car to rotate a little bit over those slight bumps, and then bounce off the curbs here on the way down to turn 5. The DPR Camaro looking pretty stable there through the S's, though there is a caveat to that. Jones might not be pushing too hard on this lap considering the mistake he made in turn 1, but he'll go deep into turn 6, use the camber of the road to propel himself through, and then straight back on the brakes for turn 7. Tight corner, tough acceleration zone. I always lose time out of there no matter what I do. And then over the crest. And then it's just the run down to 10A and 10B, and then the lap is effectively complete, but still has to think about that final corner, which we saw him getting very squirrely through on the run up to this lap.
Yeah, there's a few other drivers going quicker. So this is sort of banker territory now for Ryan Jones, because Bo Albert was 2/10 quicker through just turn 1, and Jake Maloney has been quicker than him through the S's. So Ryan Jones will be the first to stick a time to the board, but then watch a few other quick ones like Albert, Maloney, and Andrew Dyson come in.
Well, Jones with a 22.3. That's immediately eclipsed by Bo Albert and Jake Maloney. Maloney already into the 121s. Ewan Baker and Ryan Campbell will put themselves in 4th and 5th of the times that has been set thus far. Maloney, especially this season, hasn't given his all in pre-qualifying. He's done enough to get into Split 1, and that's about it. But once he actually gets out there and gives it his best, you see he is still one of the top competitors in this championship. And that TTR Mustang is looking mighty stable.
Yeah, so I wonder if a couple of these times we've seen out lap, prep lap, another flying lap. A lot of them, in this time session, you're going to keep going around quickly on your in lap so you can get in new set of tyres, fit as many runs as possible in. You're not going to dawdle on your in lap. But there's a few cars that kind of look like first lap might have been preparation lap. Ryan Jones is going quicker this lap than the last one. Dominic Ferrara is about to cross the line. So no, he lost a bit of time in that previous sector, but he was faster through sector 1, and there's a few cars that are looking like they just held back a little bit and are now gonna push on. Ryan Jones is pitting in because he lost 3/10 at exiting turn 7.
Yeah, obviously faster in sector 1 on the in lap because he didn't run wide at turn 1 that time. So bolt some fresh rubber on that Camaro and see what grip it can really give you into turn 1 when he comes round for the next hot lap. So 17 drivers setting times there in the first flurry of laps. We're still waiting on times from Angus Lawford, one of our drivers has graduated from Split 2, and the number 61 of Jordan Mazzaroli as well hasn't got a time on the board yet. So wait for that from those two. They are currently out and prepping for a second run at a lap here, as Ryan Jones has already exited pit lane and is getting ready to make his way through again. Same goes for pretty much everybody here. Just coming into the pits for a stop, put a bit more fuel in the car, fresh tyres, keep the engine nice and hot. I think that's going to be a big aspect here. The more heat you have in your oil and water temperature, the faster the car generally will be down the straights.
Ferraris got himself a black flag, potentially on his pit entry there. Got a group of cars in front of Brownlee here that have all just exited the pits. They're staying right-hand side of the road to get out of the way of Brownlee, so that looks like Bo Albert there. He's trying to get himself in positioning ahead of Ewan Baker, and all of them are going to jostle for spots heading towards turn 10. As Brownlee shoots past them, he's not tracking for any improvement. It's probably going to be an in-lap for Brownlee. But all of those cars behind are setting up to begin flyers. Bo Albert's currently fourth, about to shoot off for another flyer. Maloney and Andrew Dyson in similar place as well. The drivers from this first group in qualifying who are looking the most promising right now.
Road Atlanta, a track of two halves, really. You got the long back straight, and then you've got the rest of the circuit, this whole first couple of sectors. Drivers were jostling for position to try and get in the best spot for a slipstream down the straight, but also not to run into the front of anyone else on the way through the twisties. It's difficult to set up, and I think that's a big reason why the 15-minute two-group format works well at a track like this. Can you imagine if everybody was out at the same time trying to set up for a hot lap there? You have drivers on hot laps trying to make their way down the straight with a whole queue of cars trying to not be at the front of the train. It would be absolute chaos. Well, Bo Albert finding his way to the front of the train. Let's see if he can improve on fourth. A 36.3 in Sector 1. I don't think that's the fastest we've seen.
He had a big slide exiting one, lost time there, has picked a little bit of it back. The drivers that did improve big time through the first sector are Andrew Dyson, Russell Pepperell. Rain Campbell's on a really hot one. Just a tiny bit behind as well. So Albert, not sure it's going to be an improvement or much of an improvement, but there'll definitely be some other times that come through. Albert's avoiding that one. Rain Campbell's the one to watch. Got a really nice toe down the back straight, I reckon.
Yeah, the OPR Mustang across the line, and it's a 122.1. Big improvement there. Up 10 places to round out the top 5 so far. Very good lap.
Yeah, perfect sectors everywhere, and then was just the right place behind Bo Albert to not be impeded, but to get a toe. So that moves Campbell up into 5th, just behind where Bo Albert still sits in 4th for the moment. Logan Barnett's about to complete a lap. Paul Young's about to complete a lap. It was interesting to see where those Split 2 promoted drivers go in Split 1. For Paul Young, it's to pit lane, but Loxton jumps to 3rd. Barnett jumps to 8th with that lap. No. Yes.
Yes. Good stuff. Also, Teo Sorono putting himself in the top 7 there. Logan Barnett in the number 100 across the line. Here comes Russell Pepperell, is set his fastest lap of the session so far. 122.5. Only good enough for 14th so far. And there's probably a little more in it there for the driver of the 750. Actually, comparing it to his practice times, his potential improvement is a couple of thousandths of a second. It was a 122.526 that was Pepperell's time in practice. With a slightly hotter track, it'd be interesting to see if he can better that. But still got a few minutes remaining in this first session to find out.
Pepperell flying the flag in New Zealand, not the only one in Split 1. Safety car driver Dan Stevens, but also Logan Barnett, Ewan Baker, and Zach Rattray White flying the flag in New Zealand. Everyone else is Australia, except for Darren Lobb with... That's a quiz question for you.
South Africa.
Correct.
Yep,
Lives
Darren
in
Lobb.
Auckland now, I believe, but still with the South African flag, which if you speak to him, you'll not be surprised by.
Absolutely. Heard a lot about Darren Lobb thanks to Scott Rankin, who engages in a lot of conversation with him. Lobb, of course, a real-life racer himself, as are many in this series. Well, Maloney, still the fastest. Hasn't improved on his time just yet, but not much of an improvement to be made. It's still looking fantastic for him. Albert, though, will be looking for a little more here. Has fallen to 5th place and is waiting to see any real improvement in Sector 1. I think he might have had another slide through the first corner that has brought his pace back down there. We'll see if that 22.1 is improved upon. All he needs is a couple of tenths and he can join Jake Maloney in the sub-122 club. But does this Mustang have enough in it on this lap?
Don't think so. But he's going to go to the line with it. Gained a little bit in the middle sector, lost a little bit in the first. No one to
There we
go
go.
in. Finds it right at the end of the lap there.
Sub
Maloney finds
122 club.
even more.
He does indeed. 121.71 now. The pace from the number 29. Looks like the Mustangs show up the top here. The track has come back down in temperature and there's clouds over the circuit. So I think if you want to improve on your time, now is the time to be out on track.
White line is the track surface temperature. Air temperature staying steady, but the clouds coming and going, and when they're coming, they're dropping that track temperature, as you can see, just a couple of notches, down from a high of about 43 Celsius, now down to 38. Shade across more of the racetrack. There's not a whole lot of time left for these drivers. Everyone's out there. Quite a few are on some fast laps, like Andrew Dyson, Brett Loxton, Tom Freer, some other drivers we haven't spoken as much about as well. James Chassenov, middle of a lap where he's improving.
Yeah. Keep an eye out for Shasti, always an element in this first qualifying session when he makes it into split 1. Maloney bringing it back in, and all things considered, we have only a couple of minutes remaining in the session here for Group 1. I think just enough time to bolt on a new set of tyres, get back out there and do one more hot lap. As long as you cross the line. Campbell
just improved to 4th.
Oh, he did. Yes. Just saw that myself. 122.0 there for the 92. Yeah, as long as you cross the line before the 20-minute mark in the session, then you will be able to complete your lap. This session will run for the first 15 minutes. Then at 20 minutes to go, there'll be a 5-minute break. And then Group 2 will come back out, the fastest drivers in pre-qualifying, where we're likely going to be seeing an incredibly tight battle for pole position. Everyone's setting up here as Ferraris puts in a 122.2, get himself up to P8, big improvement there. So the privateer entry looking good for maybe the second half of the field. I'll be interested to see how many of these times actually hold up versus Group 2.
Yeah, it's always the thing. Some of them look like, oh, that's going to hold up, and then it doesn't quite when it comes around to the next group, the top pre-qualified drivers. Trying to stay all the way out of the way. Some of them trying to prepare their tyres here, like Bo Albert, who we saw is on an outlap. Brett Loxton jumped into 4th, ahead of Rayne Campbell, who was briefly in 4th. Loxton's still pushing on this lap, but I think the tyres are gone. And
yeah, abandons too much rotation on the rear there in the 209. Oh, bounces off the wall coming into the pits as well on the way in.
Maloney did the same last time as well. They're all practicing the limit on that one. Here's Oshan Colangelo, currently 12th, so middle of this group on an in-lap. You've got Maloney, Albert, Dyson, all just beginning their final flying laps. Tom Freer is about to cross the line and start one as well. Russell Pepperell's going to run out of time.
No further laps from Mr. Pepperell. See if Colangelo improves here. Her current fastest time, 1:22.2, but it's not going to be enough. That lap just wasn't the best, and it looks like Bo Albert might be pulling out of this one too. Still, he can be happy with second place in Group 1, a solid performance. Ryan Jones, the first driver to set a lap time in the whole session, looking to break back into the provisional top 10 here, but the lap is not looking great for the time being. He doesn't have the benefit of slipstream, and it looks like he might just pull over to allow others past him here, maybe get a bit more weaving in before the end of the session. The checkered flag flew about 20 seconds ago, but he could improve. Still waiting to see if this makes a difference here for Jones. 1:22.2 is his fastest time so far, and it looks like it's not going to be an improvement there. Well, he only just misses out, 1:22.3.
Driver who definitely will improve on this final run looks to be Jordan Mazzaroli. PB first sector, PB through the middle sector. Everyone else, there was no purple first sectors with that whole group of drivers that put on new tyres and tried to make a final run. So I don't know what happened for them, but a lot of drivers that could have improved didn't. Mazzaroli, still up on this lap. Currently 19th of the 19 drivers that have been out on track, but this could move that.
So Mazzaroli needs to improve on a 1:22.6, and he does. He gets into the top 10. Brilliant stuff. Up to 8th for Jordan Mazzaroli. Well, if there's any time to find an improvement, it's right at the end. And
really big jump. Super lap. Interesting car placement as well, to be just like 500 meters behind a group of the big dogs like Bo Albert and Jake Maloney and Andrew Dyson, who were out there. Mazzaroli, one of the last cars to take the line to start a new lap, and did really get great job with it.
Certainly did. It looks like he is the last, because we have Bo Albert just coming round to bring the car into pit lane as we speak, and that's going to be another 3 minutes before the green flag for group number 2. But here's how things stand so far. Maloney with a 1:21.7. And if this were practice, that would be good enough for P2. So I think that's a big statement there from Jake Maloney. Bo Albert only 0.2 of a second behind him, 0.3 of a gap for Andrew Dyson, and Loxton only shadowing him by 16 thousandths. Very close indeed. Campbell, Serrano, Freer, Mazzaroli, Ferraris, and Barnett are your top 10, with 20 drivers setting times in the session there. Josh Horton in 11th place. Have to go back another 100th to find Ryan Jones, and another 100th back for Colangelo. 4 thousandths back to James Chastaneuf. Then Brownlee putting himself in 15th ahead of Baker and Pepperell for Synergy and Kiwi Sim Racing. Paul Young putting in 18th place, with Angus Lawford and Blake Warboys rounding out the field there. It looks like Warboys might have gotten to the session late, was unable to set a representative lap time there, so it's not going to be a good run there for Warboys, who's usually a factor in the top 10.
Yeah, and I've got 3 pit stops in the session for Warboys, suggesting went out there, did a couple of runs, and that's the best time that came out of them. I didn't see Warboys struggle with slowdowns or anything, but might have picked up an off-track or two in a couple of places. Here goes the safety car, the BMW M2 CS Racing, between sessions.
Yeah, always good to see Dan Stevens out there ragging it in the BMW M2, which is a bit of a polarizing car to drive. I've driven it myself at speed, and it understeers like a pig. It's rather difficult to get around a track quickly. It's very impressive to see drivers get pace out of it. It's obviously not my kind of car, but it serves very well as a safety car for the series here. And Dan Stevens has made quite a few appearances in race conditions in this 2025 season,
including Split 2 just earlier, lap 3
Indeed.
safety car.
Yes, So he's already done some work tonight. Might be hoping for a little bit of a break here. But it's always good to keep the joints well oiled, so to speak. And we've seen it get a lot brighter out there. Yep, drivers queuing at pit exit for the start of Group 2, just in time for the sun to come out. The track temperature is down to 34 Celsius, so I think with the clouds passing, we're going to be seeing that temperature rise, but not right away. We might be seeing some very fast times here to begin things for Group 2. It is time. The green flag has flown, and drivers make their way out onto the racetrack. The first driver in the train is the TTR number 22 of Brady Myers.
He got a run and jump, actually, anticipating the drop of the green flag and pit exit opening. So he jumped a couple of the cars that were waiting in the queue at pit exit to get out there first. Doesn't look like everyone's pushing particularly hard on this outlap. We've seen everyone pushing hard on the in-lap just to get around and get back to the pit lane and be able to get... Well, I think they actually got 5 fresh tyre runs in the first group. So we'll see if everyone gets the same number here.
Here comes more cloud as well. It's going to bring the track temp down at the...
Jake Burton wants some track position. Here he goes. Or is
yeah.
there a team game afoot with the level of slipstream afforded on the back straight? Maybe we'll see more of that in this group. Burton was 4th in the train, moves up into 2nd. Now the group begins to form with Ryan O'Sullivan, Rehan Leonage, and then Matt Morris behind Emily Jones, next car in this group. So 6th in the train as we come around for this top group of qualifying.
So the southern end of the circuit still under the shade of cloud, but you can see that the temperature is starting to rise now. So it's crucial that they get their laps in right now. Try and be mistake-free, get your banker in, see if you can improve later, but be aware that the track temperature might get higher and it'll be more difficult to extract the pace. Myers through the opening corners, and I'm not seeing any complaints from the rear end of the car here. Myers is just straight lining these corners, tips it in for 5, and over the crest, maybe a little bit of wheel spin, but he keeps it straight. Incredibly impressive. And then a little bit of cloud, making the circuit a little grayer through this section. So it'll be good for the all-important acceleration zone out of turn 7. Maybe some minor steering corrections there for Myers, but he is out there in front. He is given a good slipstream to his teammate Jake Burton, who's behind him in the train here. We're going to be seeing a flurry of lap times come to the fore here.
Yeah, but I'm not sure many of them are going to go all the way to the top. No one was purple through the first sector or through turns 6 or 7. The run down to the timing line of the braking zone, Madison down. Now Corey McFarlane hit purple sectors there. So the slipstream's super powerful, but no one right up against the limit through the S's and turn 1. This will still be a decent lap, but I don't think it's going to the top.
It is going to P2. P3, sorry, for Brady Myers. Jake Burton goes 2nd, and whoa, there we go. Josh Anderson and Madison down. They were playing the draft game very nicely in the second pack of 2 TTR cars. Immediately go 1 and 2, with Anderson setting a 121.6.
Gaining so much time in the final sector, suggesting he was deep on the brakes into 10A and 10B and got good traction over the hill out of 10B as well. So that's what's separating these guys in this group, these drivers, from the rest at the moment. Isn't speed through the apex of 1, it's speed through 10A, 10B, traction out of the slow corners. Ever important,
as Corey McFarlane has a couple of little squibbles on his way through turn 6. McFarlane, though, putting himself P5. A very impressive run thus far. And I think just seeing that first flurry of lap times come in, it makes Jake Maloney's time in Group 1 all the more impressive. He still remains 3rd.
Yes, only usurped in that first group of runs by Josh Anderson and Madison down. Anderson also finding quite a bit of time at the far end of the circuit. Everyone's coming in. There's no back-to-back laps looking possible in these track conditions. 37 degrees Celsius. This side in the sun, the far end in the shade for the minute. Everyone's looking for their pit box, their pit crew, and service, and get back out there and try to get lots of runs in if possible.
Yeah, Zach Rattray White, I think, will be in a hurry to get back out there, and he is. Remember that Rattray White managed to get into the top 3 in practice, but thus far he is outside the top 10 in qualifying. So he still needs a bit here, as it looks like a car on a hot lap, or maybe an in-lap coming through there. That's Dylan O'Shea, who actually did not get a time in the first run, and that was just the start of his first hot lap. So that's already been compromised thanks to a big train of cars coming out of the pits alongside.
It is sometimes a difficult pit exit here because you're going through turn 1 and then the track kind of keeps turning up the hill, and you can sort of accidentally merge and blend into cars that are exiting as they get up to speed pretty similar to the speed with the cars on the racing line. So yeah, for O'Shea might have been just a little bit difficult there as everyone else looked to exit.
Yeah, 36.6 in Sector 1. That's a few tenths or more off what we might expect from the fastest drivers in the session. But O'Shea and Ryan O'Sullivan, the only drivers apart from Brenton O'Brien who have not set times in the session yet. Here comes O'Shea across the line, and it's going to be a 122.5 for him, and only puts him 32nd. He's not going to be happy with how that lap started. Fortunately, still 8.5 minutes left to get a proper time in. As far as a banker goes, could certainly be worse.
Yeah, and you will get a couple more opportunities, so I don't think it's make or break on that first lap. I guess it just depends what the weather does. Maybe the weather was the best for the first lap, but you just won't know. It's like test match batting conditions. You do what you can, and then you see if it gets better or it gets worse. You don't always know. You're in the golden days until you're out of them.
We've been informed that Brenton O'Brien is acting as a spotter for this round, so technically he shouldn't be in the server. So we'll see if that gets sorted out. We will have 35 drivers taking to the start here. Jake Burton on another hot lap here. 36.2 in Sector 1, not too bad. Big rotation on the car into 10A. We'll see if he commits to the end of this one. He certainly does. Down the hill, tip it in. Big slide into the final corner. Is this going to be enough? 121.9. Not an improvement for the number 80. And unfortunately, it didn't count as well. It looks like he got an off track, but more improvements coming in. Myers has just gone to 5th, and Ryan O'Sullivan's first time puts him in 11th place. McFarlane improves to 4th. Darren Lobb improves to 12th. We're seeing a lot of improvements here, as it seems the clouds are over the first couple of sectors at the time being.
Yeah, and this whole group of drivers will just be pushing the limits a little harder in lap 2 than in lap 1, evidenced by the drivers whose lap times didn't count. There was 1 or 2 of them. So this is in-lap stuff for everyone. Josh Anderson's just exiting pit lane on a new set of tyres. Matt Morris is on a flying lap. Matt Morris is the only driver on a flying lap right now in the 966. And he's done personal best through the S's and turn 5. Might get a bit of a tow here. Could move up just a little bit. Not going to go to the top of the times, I don't think, but looking for improvement.
Smooth exit from turn 7 as well for Morris. So see if he can maintain that momentum in the slipstream. Got the 17th place car of Jordan Ross just up ahead of him. Should just be getting a whisper of draft down the straight there. Into 10A and 10B. Got to be careful not to take too much out of those curbs. They are flat, and the grass will get you the off-track 1X if you even so much as look at it the wrong way. Smooth through the final corner, and it's a 121.9 for Morris. Good enough for 11th. Very nice run.
Yeah, very nice. Josh Anderson not far away from starting a new flying lap. The driver who's currently on top. See if he can go even quicker than a 1:21.627. A couple of drivers right in his wake, though. And that seems effective on this track to make sure you can get a bit of slipstream on the back straight if possible.
Interesting to see that the car in question is Zach Rattray White, who's put himself between Josh Anderson and his teammate Kurt Stenberg. Ran into Stenny at Wanneroo when the V8s were there a few weeks ago. Nice to check in. He was there taking photos much like I was. And
Hope he was staying hydrated.
Yes, I'm pretty sure he
he's
was.
Out of it. Anderson's out of the lap.
Oh, yeah, okay. So evidently the first sector or so didn't go well for him, and Zach Rattray White has backed out of it as well. He wanted that slipstream off Anderson. He wanted to improve on his current standing there. He's down in 16th is Rattray White. A far cry from where he would be based on his practice pace. And time is running out to get those laps in. We see cars setting up for a hot lap just ahead of these guys, so this could be a problem for Kurt Stenberg. Oh, Darren Lobb setting up there, and Stenny, I think, has had to back out of it there. That could have cost him a couple of tenths. Lobb gets into the gravel trap, just exits alongside Stenny there, who pulls out of the lap. Didn't go well.
No, definitely didn't. Josh Anderson also pitted for a new set of tyres. Madison down crosses the line.
Whoa! There goes Madison down to P1, 121.6. An incredible setup there from our former series champion. This will be a big one if Down can hold on to it.
Jake Burton PB through the first two micro splits of this lap. Decent enough traction out of 7. Chance of a slipstream. Can Burton move up from 5th?
Yeah, going to be difficult for Burton here, but he does have Dylan O'Shea up ahead of him. Get a little bit of slipstream there. William Sapstead right behind Jake Burton here as well, and Sapstead's performance has been good this round too. 7th place in the privateer number 81. Burton commits to the end of the lap here. And what's this going to be here for the number 80? 121.7. It's not going to be enough. He only just missed out.
Yeah, so there, 10,000ths of a second away from improving. Just needed the tiny, tiny, tiny margins that he didn't get, and also had a bit of a slide coming out of the final corner. Might not have got the toe that he wanted. Emily Jones will go to 7th. Correct.
Yep, good stuff from Emily Jones. Rattray White making that improvement to 8th as well. So we're seeing some late improvements in the session here. Is there anything more that Rattray White can do? Looking at his laps here, well, he's done 3 laps so far on this stint.
Lobb, remember, he was in that weird situation where he had to cut the course on his in-lap. He's just cycled back around to start a new flying lap. So Darren Lobb, of the drivers in this group, I think only Stenberg, Barnett, O'Shea are lower than him. So Darren Lobb could jump a lot of spots if he could find a good time. Or he can find a bit of traffic, unfortunately. We'll see how that affects him at the next timing intermediate.
Wasn't quite able to get online for turn 6 as quickly as he'd like. 36.2 in Sector 1. That's not bad. Keep an eye out for the Sector 2 time. If he can get around 26.8 or so, I think it might be a good one. He doesn't have any slipstream up ahead of him, so his speed will be down just a couple of Ks an hour. Touches 273 on the way into the braking zone, though, so a solid run down the straight, and a 27.4 for Sector 2. I think that's all right.
Traction good.
Yeah.
So then just the run, trying to keep it pinned as possible to the line. That is very early out of the final corner. then he will jump a couple of spots. So good at the end of that lap. Might have been even better if he had a clean run, no dirty air through the S's.
Yeah, up from 15th to 10th. Only 30 seconds left in the session. We're going to see the final times come in. Stenberg improving to 15th place. Anderson remaining second. But he did improve on his time, tighten the margin to Madison down, but it wasn't enough.
These drivers are all on hot laps. Madison Down just started one. Corey McFarlane behind him just started one. Emily Jones is, I'm not sure, on an in-lap. So I reckon between Down, McFarlane, Brady Myers even has a PB through the first sector. A few drivers that could snatch it on the final run.
Here comes Sapstead. Down in Sector 1. Sort of on par in Sector 2, but it's not going to be worth committing. So he's going to practice pit entry one more time there. Matthew Morris will cross the line here. See if he can improve on 13th. Sliding through the corner. 122.2. Not enough. Misses out on improving by 0.3. The checkered flag is out. And it looks like Darren Lobb is going to come into pit lane. Will Jordan Ross commit to the end of this lap?
Up.
Doesn't look like it. Oh yeah, this is going to be interesting.
But believe me, Down is up. He's had a bit of a snap there. McFarlane doing okay. No, dropped some time just behind him.
Oh, just misses out on improving there. And that's a big jump up from Ryan O'Sullivan. Just went P5 down to a 121.7. Beautiful job getting it done there in the final moments of the session. Jake Burton is the only car still out on circuit right now. And I don't know if he's going to commit to the end of this one. Definitely doesn't look like it, according to the timing on the bottom of the screen.
He came out too late to cross the line to start a new lap, but he gave it a shot, but no, missed the line, missed the timing.
Oh, it's a bit of extra mileage at least.
Yeah, it's going to hurt the resale value of that Camaro, though.
Certainly, but...
one owner, only driven on Sundays.
Yeah. Well, everyone's going to bring it into the lane then. That is the end of qualifying for round 6 of V8 SCOPS. And we have an absolute bumper grid here, headed up by 3 Trans-Tasman Racing Camaros. This is going to be a big race coming up here. 50 laps on the cards, again with 2 compulsory pit stops and a fuel tank restriction. The grid will be as follows. Madison Down on pole position, the track he won at in 2015. He hasn't taken a win at Road Atlanta since. See if he can make good on that 10 years later. Joshua Anderson, his teammate, Aussie Racing Cars champion in the real world, is going to join him on the front row. Jake Maloney and Corey McFarlane are your 3rd and 4th place getters in qualifying. Great performance from McFarlane and also from Ryan O'Sullivan, who rounds out the top 5, starting alongside Jake Burton. Brady Myers will start in 7th place alongside Emily Jones, and the 5th row of the grid, Zach Rattray White and William Sapstead rounding out the top 10.
Next road, Darren Lobb and Bo Albert, 11th and 12th after that qualifying. Rayhan Leonage in 13th, Matt Morris in 14th, Jordan Ross in 15th, Kurt Stenberg in 16th, with Dylan O'Shea qualifying 17th, bit of Andrew Dyson in 18th. It's Brett Loxton and Rain Campbell in 19th and 20th.
Teo Sorono starting in 21st place alongside Tom Freer in the Synergy 707. Jordan Mazzaroli going to start 23rd alongside Dominic Ferraris. Going to be an interesting matchup there with Logan Barnett and Josh Horton starting on the 13th row of the grid. Ryan Jones and Ocean Colangelo going to round out your 14th row. James Chastaneuf and Lockhart Brownlee round out your top 30. Then it's Ewan Baker and Russell Pepperell, 31st and 32nd. The 11th row of the grid, Paul Young and Angus Lawford. Sorry, not quite the 11th row. Blake Warboys is going to round out our field there with Brenton O'Brien erroneously in the server, but we're not going to be seeing the number 26 on the grid here. Now, as we bring things down to the race start, a reminder of what is to come. 2-hour time limit for this race, 50 laps, should be just under 205 kilometers of racing. And 2 pit stops to come there. When they take the pit stops is entirely up to the drivers, apart from the first couple of laps and last couple of laps. Big field of cars starting up the hill around the final corner here. Could be some chaos on the start if they don't get the power down properly.
Yeah, so still surprised by that qualifying effort from Blake Warboys, but will be on the grid. Everyone but Jordan Mazzaroli's taken their spot on this grid. Half the field around the corner and up the hill for this start, but Madison Down and Josh Anderson with a perfect view of turn 1 and the 50 laps ahead.
Waiting for those last couple of moments before the lights come up. Some technical issues there for Bo Albert on the grid, but I think they might sort out by the time we get up to speed. Revs rise, and it's Madison Down and Josh Anderson on your front row here at Road Atlanta. Green flag flies, and we are away. Great start from Down. He's going to already put some time on his teammate who moves over to block Jake Maloney. So it's a battle of the Trans-Tasman cars for second coming into turn 1 round the outside for Corey McFarlane, going to pressure the both of them coming into turn 3, making it through the first turn cleanly, the majority of our field. We already see James Chastanerf, Ewan Baker making up spots, Blake Warboys as well, up 3 places, and we're not even halfway around the first lap.
Big check-up as the field needed to go single file through turn 3 and then into the S's. McFarlane in such an aggressive position here. Battled side by side with Jake Maloney. Didn't end up taking that spot, but he's going to keep being, dare I say it, the black sheep amongst this Trans-Tasman racing sea up front at the moment.
Yeah, this is a crazy run from the TTR cars. We have 5 of the top 6 being those TTR Camaros, and things are getting a little leery further back. Dylan O'Shea and Matt Morris coming together on the exit of turn 7. That gives a free run to Kurt Stenberg and to Andrew Dyson as well, who's going to try and make up another spot here on the way down to 10A and 10B, almost 3 wide behind as well. The OPR car is going to stay wide there of Rain Campbell. And Matt Morris will hit the apex of 10B, try and get a run here on Brett Loxton. These guys are fighting all the way down for the last few positions in the top 20, side by side through the final corner. Morris compromises, but it looks like he'll be able to get through.
Well, the qualifying pace and the race pace are 2 different things for Blake Warboys. He's made 6 positions on the first lap as he tries to work his way through the field. It was rear locking, I think, for O'Shea at turn 7 as he made contact with Bo Albert and then got a poor run onto the back straight, leading towards what you saw. The top 4 are as they run. Brady Myers from 7th to 5th is now the driver in behind Corey McFarlane as the compulsory pit stop window opens with a safety car free opening lap.
Yeah, good to see that has been kept at bay for now. Warboys up into 29th place and looking at the back of Lockhart Brownlee, who himself is up 2 places. So some profitable nights getting set up here from the back of the field. Looks like Brownlee was able to get the power down a little better out of turn 7. Warboys ever unflappable on the Zoom feed. Keep his eyes forward and focus on a potential move at 10A and 10B, but a bit too far back to really make a proper go of it. Brownlee's going to go slightly defensive anyway, just to be safe. And they'll have to wait for the next opportunity, which isn't going to come until about turn 6, turn 7. If there's a bad run through the final corner, Warboys might be able to find his way past at turn 1, but it is definitely a single file circuit in the first winding half.
Reese Gardner, look at the track temperature.
David Haynes, I am looking at the track temperature. Oh my lord. Yeah, 51 Celsius. That's going to do a number on the fronts, to say nothing of the rears.
Sure is. We've gone from qualifying into the race and it's been sunny the whole time in between. It's really heated up the racing surface and therefore it is going to be wreaking havoc on those tyres. The grip's going to be dropping away quickly. The front lefts are going to be wearing. The rear tyres are going to be wearing. The cars are going to be moving around. And it perhaps moves this race from less of a fuel strategy race to more of a tyre strategy race.
Yeah, who can look after their tyres the best? Who can avoid generating too much heat? I think that's going to define at least the early stages of this race. If more cloud cover comes down and the track temperature drops, we might see drivers pushing a little more. McFarlane looking at Jake Maloney there in the background, not quite able to find his way into the top 4, but we are still seeing a Trans-Tasman lockout of those top 4 positions coming up to the end of lap 3. And Madison Down is looking quite quick for the moment. That was his PB of the race thus far, just building up the pace. Maloney, though, the fastest car on track that time by in 4th. The fastest lap of the whole race belonging to Josh Anderson. And I think there's still plenty of opportunity for that to be improved on.
And after the first couple of laps, there were 1 or 2 cars that didn't have a personal best lap. Lap times deleted because of track limits. Everyone's got one now, and Joshua Horton, around him, there's a massive bottleneck happening through the S's. Tom Freer, Talsarono, is that the group that I'm seeing, or is it elsewhere? I think it's this.
Certainly is. Freer
Sarono with a slowdown.
Oh dear, yeah, that's not ideal for Teo Sarono. He's bunched up everybody behind him. Warboys at the rear of it there in the green and black Mustang. Let's see who gets... Oh my goodness. Mazzaroli with a bit of a wiggle through turn 7. Seems like that car is struggling for grip here. Potentially has put a bit too much heat into the tyres. Corey McFarlane, meanwhile, has fallen out of the top 5. Brady Myers putting a move on him down at 10A and 10B. So we now have the top 4 once again consisted of Trans-Tasman cars. Sorry, my timing screen is being a little weird right now. It's showing Bo Albert in the lead, but that's clearly not the case.
No, he's blinking in and out of that lead if he has it, which he doesn't. Definitely a group forming here as well. It looks like Burton and Ryan O'Sullivan are even closer. Corey McFarlane is not going to let Brady Myers hold on to that position easily. And then Zach Rattray White, Emily Jones, some quick drivers in this group here as well. You sort of look from 3rd through to 10th and even deeper in the field, and it's so close. But I think key is that top 2 of Down and Anderson just putting a bit of gap in as their teammates Maloney and Myers keep a group tight behind. Rattray White moves up in the 7th ahead of O'Sullivan.
Yeah, it does indeed. Rattray White moving very nicely. And we still have a big train here behind our leaders. It looks like Madison Down and Josh Anderson are starting to jet away from these guys, and I think Down might have had a poor exit out of turn 7 because Anderson's a lot closer to him than he was. See what that brings, and you can see clearly on the track map the 2 big groups that have eventuated from this race. We have our top 2 off on their own, and then everyone from 3rd down to 18th in their own little group. Freer, Loxton, Sarono and Mazzaroli are a bit on their lonesome for now. And it looks like 2 more positions just being made up by Blake Warboys. He is now up 11 places. That is a solid run from the number 63. Or is it up 10 places, depending on whether my timing screen wants to cooperate with me. Regardless, Warboys is making no secret that he wants to move further up. And it is 10 positions. Paul Young, distant second there with 5 positions gained. So Warboys is finding his way to the front of this pack. Just got Horton up ahead of him. And then he might have some clear air where he can afford to play around with his strategy a bit more.
Something about that livery says 1998 to me, and in a good way. I like it. Striking, and he's moving forward as well. So striking in his own way.
Lap 2 replay coming up for you all. Looking at Ocean Colangelo, I noticed she was down the order a bit, and we're about to see why. That's contact there with Ferraris on the way out of turn 7. Wasn't quite clear. So unfortunate there for Ocean, and never know, Ferraris might have race control looking at that. We'll have to wait and see.
Sorono with another slowdown. It's the only driver I've seen them come up for. He's gone and picked up another one. That must be cutting turn 10 if we're just going into turn 1 right now. Dropping a position, trying to clear it.
It looks like he just cleared it before turn 1, but he's going to fall under pressure from Mazzaroli there. First driver to come into pit lane, Russell Pepperell. He's gone quite early, only 6 laps in.
Well, with 2 compulsory pit stops in a 50-lap race, to split it all evenly would be approximately 17-lap stints. So he's 10 laps earlier than splitting things even. Maybe he thinks he's in some traffic. There's some tyre undercut to be had. If there is a real tyre advantage to be had, then you bring your stops earlier than the evenly spaced windows just to try to get some track position from the tyre undercut.
We'll see if that profits for Russell Pepperell. Check back in with Zach Rattray White, finding his way into 7th place and gaining steadily on Jake Burton. A 10th faster on the previous lap. And we have Corey McFarlane up ahead, who's been continuing to drop back from Brady Myers and company up the front. This time by Rattray White, the fastest car in the top 10. Looking good for the moment. Oh, there's some drama. I think that was Baker emerging back onto the racetrack as Chastaneuf trying to negotiate some chaos through the last couple of corners.
See Logan Barnett just ahead of Chastaneuf here. It was Ewan Baker jump scare appearing into scene as they exited 10A and 10B. So obviously he's been either outbraked himself or been escorted out there.
Yeah, I think that might be worth dissecting. Oh, Paul Young shoved wide by Lockhart Brownlee there. Fortunately, there is the alternate layout tarmac there that he can use to recover, but that will be some damage to the side of the car for the number 40. Paul Young, despite having made his way up quite a few places, pushed all the way back to 34th position, sorry. And that will be none too good for him. This is what happened to Ewan Baker. Deep on the brakes into 10A and 10B, too deep. He had to back out of the corner completely.
Yeah, rear locking there as well, seeing quite a bit of that happen. Seen that in some other instances as well. When they get in too deep and they have to really slam the brakes, it's the rear tyres locking up first.
Easy to do in these cars. You have to manually blip the throttle on the way down the gears, and if you get your timing wrong or you don't blip enough, then the rear will lock up. These cars, of course, have a locked differential. There's no opportunity to change, power, coast, etc. It's all 100% equal power to both rear wheels at the same time, and that means it works the same off the power as well. Here comes Horton down through the S's. No opportunity to get past at turn 5. Mazzaroli, we've seen, has been having some trouble with traction in the last couple of laps, and this might open up an opportunity for Horton to get by. Not at turn 6, though. It might have to be at 10A.
So just keeping an eye on those track temperatures that remain north of 50 degrees Celsius. Lap times are beginning to drop away. Joshua Anderson, forgive me, has the fastest lap of the race, 22.7, but his last lap at 23.6, about a second off of it. Slipstream, bump drafting almost here down towards turn 10. Defensive,
That's big
so
defense.
defensive.
Oh, well, a little pocket opens to the outside that Horton tries to get into, but Mazzaroli successful on the defense thus far. And that little fight has brought Warboys right into contention, and Warboys is taking Ryan Jones with him. Oh, no, I think that's a slowdown for Blake. No, just defending. That's interesting. Evidently, Warboys...
Well, he got checked up through the final corner. He couldn't put his nose down the inside of Joshua Horton when he had a run, so that checked him up onto the front straight, and he's like, Ryan Jones, just stay there because I'm going to make more progress here. Don't ruin this for me. You just sit back there.
Yeah, if you're holding on to some great race pace and you've got drivers trying to attack you from all sides, it can be very difficult to keep your wits about you. So make sure that they're behind you and keep your eyes forward. Burton on the back of McFarlane here. Slipstream potentially for the TTR number 80. And I've got my view centered on Madison down at the front of the field. I heard him kick the clutch pedal into the braking zone for 10A. It seems the number 77 is saving some fuel.
We had a gap between second and third, between Anderson and Maloney, and it's closing up. It's bringing the whole rest of the field in. From your leader to 17th is only 7 seconds on the track. So, yeah, Maloney, Myers, but then McFarlane, Zach Rattray-White, these other drivers are getting closer to the race leaders. Maybe they're entering a management and conservation phase, which I don't think I'm seeing here.
No, Logan Barnett at the head of this pack. Chastaneuf trying to keep Dominic Ferraris behind him. Ferraris with the inside exit out of turn 1 and Chasty getting up on the curb. Side-by-side contact into turn 3, and there's nowhere for Chastaneuf to go there except slightly off the track. Here comes Lockhart Brownlee, smelling blood in the water, and side-by-side through here almost never works. If you don't crash, you end up losing time anyway. And that's just made Chastaneuf and Ferraris completely lose touch with Logan Barnett.
You lose so much time when you go side by side through consecutive corners like that. It's brought all these other drivers in, but it's what you felt like you had to do to defend the track position. But then a late dive down the inside, and these two are going to bump and barge the whole way, I reckon.
Yeah, Lockhart Brownlee doesn't see the opportunity open immediately, but is able to get alongside Dominic Ferraris on the way down to 10A and 10B. You stick to the right along this stretch, and it's geometrically a better line, but it seems Ferraris jerking his car about a little bit as he tries once again up the inside of Chastaneuf, and they make contact through 10A and 10B. This could be the opportunity that Lockhart Brownlee's looking for, and he just makes it through. Almost came a cropper there, and Angus Lawford in the background says, yeah, I don't want any part of this, I'm pitting.
Winning move from Brownlee is just not to be involved in that scrap, and as they leant on each other through turn 10, he shot up the inside. Great traction, now he runs wide out of one. Ferraris wobbling is all over him.
This is an exciting race, and it's only for 28th position on the road, so that just goes to show. Anywhere in the field, there is someone to race with, and well, some people race harder than others. Dominic Ferraris, certainly evidence of that. Andrew Dyson, meanwhile, 17th place for the moment, and Dylan O'Shea, the next car up. Both of these drivers up 1 position each. They are just trailing off the back of that massive train for the lead of the race, and looks like Dyson is going to show the nose and put the idea forward to O'Shea that maybe he should be leading the charge here, but O'Shea says no.
Super close on the way in there as O'Shea heads for pit lane. You're talking about that chance of fuel saving for Down and Anderson. Well, it's not like at Sebring where they cleared their compulsory stops early. We had a series of safety cars and then they mega fuel saved their way to the end. If it stays green, I'm not sure you're going to gain all that much from saving fuel at the lead.
Mazzaroli, meanwhile, falling back behind the top 2 cars in this trio that have been entertaining us for the last couple of laps. Seems that Jordan hasn't had a good last lap or so. Potentially an off at 10A or 10B involved in that one. Now, he'll be right in the mix. Ocean Colangelo and Paul Young will join him here just behind the pack led by Lockhart Brownlee. As happened to Mazzaroli, he was trying to get a move done on Brett Loxton, and, well, seems that Loxton was having no part in that. A little bit of contact there, a little bit of contact back.
I need Loxton's on board.
Potentially.
Yeah. So late move down the inside with a lock up to slide there, and Loxton just touches the grass, but he gets a very square hit on the rear quarter panel of Mazzaroli.
Certainly does. And,
he'll pull it in.
Yeah, Loxton with some damage to the front as well from that. It's starting to get Larry here in the top 10. Zach Rattray-White has now passed Jake Burton, and here comes Ryan O'Sullivan to try and get in the mix as well. Burton losing a bit of pace on these last couple of laps, potentially vulnerable to moves from other drivers. Well, Rattray White will be happy that he's now in the top 6 and has a tiny bit of clear air ahead of him to McFarlane. It's impressive in the midst of all of this that McFarlane has held on to that position.
Yeah, and if you've got a bit of pace, now's the time to show it, just a couple laps away from the mathematically even split first pit stop. I do wonder exactly what the strategy is going to be, because you could, on the starting fuel 75% tank, run way deeper than lap 17 into this race, but the tyre pace drop-off is already looking like about 1.5 seconds per lap. So if you went to a new tyre and you were on it, see now I'm saying tyre singular like a must again, and you were on it for 3 laps, you could undercut someone by like 4 seconds with that kind of tyre offset, the way that it's sort of dropping away a little.
Yeah, big moves to be made, but timing is everything, and it looks like the time is now for Burton.
Yeah, that'll put some pressure on the rest of these drivers that are in behind Down and Anderson, create a little bit of a gap and split here, and make them all need to think. And if Zach Rattray White's got more speed, then now's the time for him to show it. He's closing in on McFarlane. We saw him make that move on Burton. Matt Morris also pits. So if you're going to charge from 9th on the grid to a podium, now's when Zach Rattray White needs to make some moves and have pace on the older, worn tyres.
Yeah, get some track position and try and consolidate. In comes Loxton as well, with plenty of dents and dings to that Mustang. It looks like Matt Morris in as well. So
no, just lost 3 seconds there. Wasn't in his pit stall. Had to reverse.
Yeah, not ideal for Brett Loxton. Well, that's going to bring home our first round of pit stops for those positions. Looks like the stops thus far are looking around about the 15 to 18 second bracket. The longest stop so far has been Matt Morris. O'Shea with 16.2 seconds stopped in the box, and a solid run out of pit lane there, pitting a couple of laps ago, has moved back ahead of Jake Burton. Rattray White making a move on McFarlane. It looks like McFarlane is going for the lane next. He's going to respond to Burton.
Yeah, Rehan Leonage in as well. Really long stop for Brett Loxton, maybe because of that damage. He hasn't gone yet. He might be actually done in this one. Got to keep an eye on the pace then for Jake Burton. Yeah, and see, he's been undercut by Dylan O'Shea in a way. So
yeah,
it actually could be tough for Jake Burton if he doesn't get through quickly. Just got O'Shea half a second in front of him. Burton's bringing these tyres in for his first flying lap on them. So the lap he's about to do should be the best that the tyres are ever going to be for Burton. Here's McFarlane on the blend.
Oh, looks like it's going to be tight between himself and Burton on the way into turn 3. And he just
across.
Gets back on the line ahead.
He deliberately changed his line to come across and cut that off before Burton got there. It wasn't the line you'd take if there was no one else there. It's the line you take when you don't want to have to hold the door open for someone who's 5 steps behind.
And these tyres are best when they're right out of the box, getting warmed up. So Corey McFarlane needs to make hay while the sun shines here and keep Jake Burton behind him. A little bit more temperature in the tyres for Burton. It's going to benefit his pace here in the short term, but he is going to run out of thermal usage, you could say, on those tyres a bit sooner than McFarlane does. And he's got the benefit of slipstream as well. We see that Mr. O'Shea is jetting away from them. Check back a bit further up the field. Bo Albert chasing Jordan Ross here. Ross currently in 11th spot. So there's potential here for a tight fight. Kurt Stenberg and Andrew Dyson not too far behind.
Yeah, you've obviously had quite a few pit stops in front of them, but it's Jordan Ross and Andrew Dyson that have made a couple of spots in this pack. Bo Albert's only up 1 on where he started at the moment. Stenberg up 4. Again, quite a few drivers like McFarlane and like Jake Burton have been in front of them, have pitted. This group haven't yet. Basically a 50-50 even split. Top 19 haven't stopped, and then another group behind currently led by Rehan Leonage with a super quick stop ahead of O'Shea, ahead of Jake Burton.
Well, speaking of Jake Burton and Corey McFarlane, they came together at the end of the previous lap. McFarlane has lost a lot of time, and it was an attempted run from Burton coming out of 10B. Burton got the traction down very nicely, but a bit of biff and barge sent McFarlane around on the start-finish straight.
We'll look at that as there's some other pit callers in. So this is through the final corner. Oh, it's that second bit.
Yeah.
If you push the guy off, you can't not let him back on. Like, they're both squeezing each other, you know. They're both in for the fight. They've both climbed in the ring and put their boxing gloves on. But it's that second bit that I don't like seeing. Here, we're bumping, we're racing, all good. There.
Yeah, the problem for Burton was he had just recovered from a slide himself, so I think maybe there was task overload at that stage. There will be no love lost between Corey McFarlane and Jake Burton here, with McFarlane now 10 seconds behind him, and anything he would have gained from those fresher tyres is now for naught in the short term. A safety car might put him back on track for it. Anderson, meanwhile, has just come out of the pits, the first of our race leaders to find his way through the lane, and Ocean Colangelo is making life tough for him. This has not been a good run here for Anderson. He's going to get a bit of a hurry up from Brady Myers, who pitted on the same lap as him. Seems that Ocean Colangelo is the thorn in the side of Trans-Tasman Racing at the moment. When you want to make a pit stop, you want to try and make sure that there's no one in front of you and you don't get held up in traffic. That's not what's happened here for Josh Anderson.
Yeah, no freebies from Colangelo, so quite a bit of time lost for Anderson, who was the highest running car to have stopped, but then returning the favour. No freebies to the next following car either. Ryan O'Sullivan, Kurt Stenberg, Rain Campbell, Joshua Horton in the lane. Looks like Madison Down and Jake Maloney going long, while we've seen a few others from inside that leading group pit.
Righto. Let's see the pit stop times come to fruition here. Rattray White filtering back out in 16th place, as he had a lap on the recent pitters. Ryan O'Sullivan coming out just behind him there, and Rain Campbell coming out just a second or so behind McFarlane. Oh, O'Sullivan's got company though, and it's Jake Burton and Dylan O'Shea coming together this time, and O'Shea, well, he will match Burton's aggression and then some. Jake will lose time as a result, allowing the number 6 machine to find their way a bit further ahead.
Leaders in. So Madison Down and Jake Maloney come in. Emily Jones, William Sapstead run long. But basically everyone who was our top 10 is through the lane once now. Tao Sorono, another slowdown penalty. Every time I look, no one else is getting him, but something about Sorono just not getting the track limits right.
Yeah, it can be difficult to place the car in such a way that you're fast without triggering those slowdowns. Sorono not having good luck with that. Down's pit stop is complete. Anderson takes the fastest lap of the race. And could this be a change for the lead? It is. The effective lead now goes to Josh Anderson. An excellent first hot lap on those tyres. Madison Down, despite being a bit quicker through pit lane, and despite Anderson having those traffic issues with Colangelo, it's worked out in the favour of the 36.
Yeah, well, the new tyres are worth 1.5 seconds per lap, so a 2-lap offset, even if didn't gain on the outlap behind Colangelo, then the lap after would have gained about 1.5 seconds potentially. There's just so much undercut potential in the tyres, but in the same coin as the tyres are dropping away, now you've got battles where there's sort of 3-4 laps of tyre offset between drivers, and these drivers who toughed it out in the first bit are going to be a little bit quicker through the mid-stint, and then we'll see what happens when the pit window opens in not too long, really. Critical lap shortly to be able to make your second compulsory pit stop, but you don't want to run 30 laps on the tyres if it stays green, I don't think.
No, certainly not. This is the critical lap to get home on fuel. William Sapstead and Jordan Ross, the last cars to make their first stop here. Bo Albert just completing his run through the pit box at 17.6 seconds. And we see trading of spots behind. Tom Freer falling behind Jake Burton and Dylan O'Shea, with now our effective race lead still in the hands of Josh Anderson ahead of Madison Down, Brady Myers and Jake Maloney. Rehan Leonage has had a good first stint here. He's worked out an effective 5th ahead of Rattray, White and Jones.
Yeah, Leonage, I think, actually stopped at a really clever time, avoided a little bit of the traffic we're talking about, and then also had just a couple of laps of undercut on drivers like Emily Jones, Andrew Dyson and Kurt Stenberg, who finds himself now here in the 7th position. I'm sort of looking at these pit stop times going, are the second stops going to be quite a bit longer? Because they're pretty quick stops, all things considered, in the 12, 15, 16 second range.
It will be interesting to see. Ross finally gets into the lane, but Sapstead is going to keep going for another lap here, so it'll be an extra spot for all of these drivers on screen at the moment.
Slide from Rattray White. That car looks good once the relative to everyone else in a 5 lap, 10 lap old tyres, but maybe not as great in qualifying trim or right out of the box fresh tyre trim. But with a 50 lap race like this, it being so hot as it is, I'd rather have a car that looked good lap 5, lap 10 into a stint than lap 1 of a stint.
Yeah, me too. Sometimes having the fastest car at the start of the stint works out if you gain a few positions through a pit cycle, for example, but having longevity of that pace is more important, and Rattray White's pace as he got into the rhythm certainly worth keeping an eye on. See what the exit is like here as Leonage mounts the curb on the apex, and Rattray White may be sliding a bit too much for his liking. Will open him up to an attack from Jones.
Yeah, Emily Jones with the freshest tyres of this group. 3 laps fresher than Rattray White, 5 laps fresher than Leonage. Looks like he's going to drop back as Rattray White. Jones looking down the inside. Ought to have a pretty strong offset to Leonage as well, but side by side, this is tough.
Yeah, outside exit marbles for Emily Jones, and ultimately could have been a position made up, but instead they have both lost time to Rehan Leonage. Sapstead finally takes his first pit stop, and everyone's going to move ahead of him there. His pit stop is complete, and looks like he'll come out in 14th position. So, bit of a drop from his initial run, but he comes out on super fresh tyres just ahead of Jake Burton, whose tyres are presently 8 laps old, so starting to approach that critical distance where
I don't mind
the
this.
heat just gets too much.
This is interesting because Sapstead's obviously right now got the freshest tyres of anyone in the field, sort of 5 laps, 7 laps offset to some of the cars in front. Ran so long there is going to not need to take as much fuel at a second stop. So I think a comparison for Sapstead is like Andrew Dyson. Dyson is 3.5 seconds up the road, but with a 5 second shorter pit stop. So you get around to this middle stint here. Sapstead's going to have heaps of pace now on these fresh tyres, then have a pretty quick second stop. Could easily jump into the top 10.
Certainly. I think he set himself up very well for that.
This is a comparison. So I think Sapstead battling Dyson in this middle stint. If that gap shrinks through this middle stint, then Sapstead will definitely jump those positions.
Yeah, guaranteed a shorter final stop than many of the drivers around him. So, race so far, it's the Trans-Tasman show up the front, and I'm getting some big few years ago vibes with that one. Anderson from Down, from Myers, from Maloney, they are all together in their own little group ahead of the three-way fight between Leonage, Jones and Rattray White. We check in on O'Sullivan, Stenberg, Darren Lobb in the 99 Mustang, just looking in on the top 10.
And the way we just made that comparison for Sapstead to Dyson, a similar comparison can be made Zach Rattray White to Jake Maloney. Rattray White, with 4 seconds more of fuel taken, is 4 seconds behind Jake Maloney in 4th. Emily Jones, those fresh tyres putting in work now up towards Leonarden for 5th.
It looks like all of the top 3 are clutching into the braking zone for 10A and 10B. Trans-Tasman Racing, they have often been the ones to try out those alternate ways of getting the speed down in the interest of saving a bit of fuel, and it seems they're clutching into turn 1 as well. They're going to shorten their stops, lessen the total amount of fuel they need to take. That's one of the reasons why they're one of the top teams in this series. Jones, of course, also a Trans-Tasman Racing driver, though we don't see her in a Trans-Tasman livery at present. And she might be wanting to try the same thing.
123.1, fastest car on the circuit last lap. Emily Jones, 7/10 faster than Anderson down that race-leading group that you're describing as saving a bit of fuel, cutting down their potential second pit stop time. So Jones is closing in quickly on the leading group of 4. Great battle here, and some of the drivers in this pack that took the most fuel and could jump further up at the next stop. Rattray White, Ryan O'Sullivan and Darren Lobb.
Sapstead had a great last lap as well, 122.6. That is miles faster than the leaders at the moment, and I think he has the benefit of clear air as well. So again, keep an eye out for William Sapstead and the likes of Emily Jones, drivers outside the top group, but on the outside looking in, and Lobb might be wanting some of that too, but he's fallen back from Kurt Stenberg, Dyson and Ross, the chasing cars here with Ross. Look at that there. Did he jump on the clutch himself? No, it's just an estimate, not actual data coming through regarding the throttle and the brakes.
It sort of like back engineers it. It looks at, how much is the car accelerating, and then tries to guess based on the G-forces what the pedal inputs in. It's not an actual telemetry link. Sometimes it's useful, but in a slipstream or stuff like this, I'm not sure it actually correctly guesses what inputs the driver is giving for the net result that we see. Traction right here, so important. And if you can avoid the slide and square the car up and launch, that's how you make positions, that's how you gain spots on track.
Looking back from Ryan O'Sullivan at Kurt Stenberg, these guys are very well matched. Stenberg only a 10th or so quicker than O'Sullivan on the last lap. Looks like he's making up a little further time in 10A and 10B. Through to the end of the lap, get a bit more context there, as it looks like Corey McFarlane has just moved past Dylan O'Shea and Rain Campbell. Bit of drama down there at 10A and 10B. Tom Freer gets in on the action too.
Yeah, sorry, Reese. I think there was also some drama there for Bo Albert, who picked up a slowdown penalty. Now we've got overlap heading towards 1.
We have indeed. Bo Albert's still got the slowdown on his car there. He's going to fall behind Sapstead here. There we go. Just cleared it through the bottom of the S's, but he has given up 13th place, and Sapstead will be happy with that. Another freebie. And look at the way he is catching up to Jordan Ross and Andrew Dyson there. That battle we were just looking at, looking back from Ryan O'Sullivan, that is effectively where Sapstead and Albert are right now. This is going to be significant. So what happened here to McFarlane to get those couple of positions? Had O'Shea and Campbell up ahead, and McFarlane just dived up the inside of the both of them. That was a brave move, but it worked out for him.
Goodness me, was O'Shea very generous to him. You could see how he was going to make the first spot, and then O'Shea's looked in the mirrors and said something else.
Yeah, indeed. Don't usually see that from Dylan there. He likes to fight to the last breath usually, but potentially thinking a bit longer term here. Still have 24 laps remaining in this race.
Yeah, so passing that halfway, but no one's made their second compulsory pit stop yet. So they're still thinking this is a very tyre life, tyre grip dominated strategy race, because if there's no tyre drop off, the minute you reach that critical lap to get to the end, you come in and hope that then a safety car benefits you. But everyone in the field, one stop. No one 0 stops, no one 2 stops. It's just a little bit of tyre offset. You've got people like Sapstead, 5-lap-old tyres, people like Joshua Anderson in the lead of the race, or Zach Rattray-White on screen, 10-lap-old tyres.
And speaking of tyre drop-off, I think it's going to be a bit less now than it was before, because clouds have moved over the entire circuit for the moment, and the temperature of the circuit has dropped to 41 Celsius. That's the lowest we've seen it since qualifying. So I'm pretty sure the drivers on slightly older tyres will be enjoying that.
Yes, because while the track was still hot, they had the benefit of an undercut, and now those tyres they went to earlier will hold on just a little bit longer in this middle stint. So that's drivers, I think like Leonage, for example, who've done pretty well out of that, despite though only just being passed by Rattray-White.
Yep. As we were talking about before, Rattray-White's car taking a few laps to really switch on, and now he is leading the pack for 6th place. So there's a lot of potential here for Rattray-White to get on the podium, but he's going to have to try something spectacular or hope for a safety car or something else to happen to the Trans-Tasman quartet, or even quintet, ahead of him at the moment. The top 5 cars, all TTR, and up the very front of the train, Anderson and Down are clutching it continually into the braking zones. Keep an eye out here on Anderson. He's going to have some lap traffic ahead of him, but watch and listen as he comes into the braking zone. Seems like he was a little more aggressive on the way down that time, but I can confirm that they have been using the clutch in the braking zone there.
It was definitely a pretty significant coast phase as he was downhill into the braking zone, and all of that had been allowing Emily Jones to close the gap. It's just opened a tiny bit. It's leveled on that previous lap. Driver in 5th place.
Madison Down, the fastest of everyone on that lap just then, 123.1. Move back to Ocean Colangelo, who's got Lockhart Brownlee and Jordan Mazzaroli for company. Mazzaroli looking up the inside of Brownlee, but deciding discretion is the better part of valor.
Now, I
Brownlee
think
a bit more aggressive on the way out.
I think you've got 2 drivers here, Brownlee and Mazzaroli, that have absolutely brimmed their tank at first stop, 23 and 23 second stops, while everyone else has gone, let's put about 3/4 in, or whatever it may be. Or maybe they adjusted an ARB. But yeah, Colangelo, I'm going to guess less fuel on board than Brownlee and Mazzaroli, who had odd first pit stop times.
Yes, well, the fuel tank for these cars is just behind the driver, so that will add a bit more weight to the rear of the car when you've fueled it up. So maybe a bit more traction out of the slow corners here for Mazzaroli and Brownlee. Could be one factor here, as we have someone in the pit lane, and it's Paul Young. Still mired back in 34th place, but he's going to get his second stop out of the way nice and early with 20 laps to go. Side by side for 17th, sorry. Rain Campbell passing Dylan O'Shea. And it looks like Tom Freer won't get a chance to take advantage of that. We'll need to keep an eye out for Blake Warboys behind, who's continuing to march his way steadily up this field. 15 places gained for the number 63.
Dylan O'Shea's got some of the oldest tyres of anyone in the field. They're 18 laps old now. He only ran 12 laps in the first stint before putting the set on that's now run 18, so Campbell going past. Tom Freer thinking about it as well. O'Shea got a massive undercut at the time, but is now beginning to trade back in some of that advantage.
Righto. Russell Pepperell, next driver to take to the pit lane, and a 16.4 second stop. That looks like, solidly fueled up to the end. Keep an eye here on Colangelo versus Brownlee. Oshan going a little more defensive on the way out of turn 5. Didn't immediately switch over to the driver's left side of the circuit for the entry to turn 6. Brownlee focusing on his exit from turn 7, but giving Colangelo a bit of a hurry up there through turn 7 and sliding the car on the way out as well. Looks like Mazzaroli might see an opportunity here if things go his way.
Colangelo maybe a touch wide, maybe locking up or on the limit of the grip, turning into that one. But then, you park it at the apex. It's the run down the straight that matters.
Oh, that's a bit deep there. And Colangelo parks it on the apex at 10B and keeps the boys behind her. And, well, Brownlee says, all right, I've had enough of this. Time to get into the pits and see if he can undercut his way past Colangelo.
Gold wheels are giving big Subaru WRX vibes. Ewan Baker also in just a little bit up the road. Pit crew, the car's behind you, fellas. But definitely fuel, the tyres going on. Brownlee just passes 10 seconds, drops down and is quickly out. So after that very long first stop, Brownlee gets a quick second stop.
Yeah, only 10.4 seconds. That is just enough to cover the tyre change. So, see if that works out for him. See if it works out for Zach Rattray-White as well, who's now 15 laps into his stint. Leonage, one of the earlier pitters in the top 10. In fact, the earliest of all, 17 laps ago. We saw Leonage in the pits, but he's keeping Rattray-White very honest. It's interesting to see for Leonage. He's been able to hold on to that long-term pace very well, especially since the track started cooling down.
17 laps to go. It's now mathematically 2/3 done, 1/3 to go in this 2 compulsory pit stop race. You're seeing a lot of drivers come in, put their set of tyres on that are going to take them to the end of the race. McFarlane, Bo Albert, Dylan O'Shea, Angus Lawford. I think if there is still on this cooling track a tyre undercut to be had, you don't want to run too much longer.
No, even on a cool track, there's only so far you can take these tyres before the pace just completely goes away. And that's usually about 10 to 15 laps when you're going full chat. So 17 laps for Leonage. I think now's about the time he would want to put those tyres to rest for now. Track temperature steadily declining.
Those slides that you need a haystack to ride? That's what the track temperature looks like. You pick up a little bit of speed, then there's a whoop in the middle, and then it drops yet further, like the fair.
Speaking of a whoop and a drop, that was Rattray-White's journey into pit lane just there. Pitting from the front of the pack and looking to get a bit of a gap that he can consolidate in his pursuit of a top 6 finish here at Road Atlanta. Now falls to Leonage to lead the pack, and I would expect him to respond to Rattray-White here, if I was in his position, but we've often seen Leonage decide to forego those opportunistic moves into pit lane in the interest of keeping it out there. His father, Laz, is always over his shoulder engineering his races, and maybe he has a better picture of what's really going on out there. So a few more pitters. We have Ferraris just coming into the box, Jordan Mazzaroli as well, Teo Sorono and Tom Freer pitting. O'Shea came in a lap ago, so did Corey McFarlane. They've set themselves up well for the final stint. Quick stop from Sorono, only 10.6 seconds. It's pretty long for Jordan Mazzaroli. 19.5 seconds for the second stop there. And here's the response. Leonage and O'Sullivan have decided to follow the lead of Zach Rattray-White. Will they be able to maintain their distance to him or even get past him here with this stop? I would suspect with the undercut, Rattray-White will come out a little bit further ahead of them, but we'll see.
Yeah, but it's a quick lap here, so I think responding one lap works out pretty well. Very quick final stop there from Leonage, 13 seconds. O'Sullivan 13.
Okay, little trouble there for Rattray White. It looks like that's Paul Young that he found his way past. Young now a lap down on the field, and man, it was a very long stop for Ryan O'Sullivan, 15 seconds compared to Rattray White and Leonage. Leonage's stop 1.5 seconds slower than Rattray White's, so it seems that potentially in all of that pack racing that we saw in the first stint, Rattray White might have saved a bit of fuel and potentially shortened his final stop as a result of that. But again,
Rattray White had one of the slightly longer first stops, leading to a quicker second stop. Whole flurry of other cars coming in the lane. The total stop time required. Oh, there's a spinner on the lane.
Oh, spinner on the lane and a spinner out on track. Ocean Colangelo makes her way back onto the racetrack with a bit of damage. I think she collected the wall coming out of turn 5 there.
So I think a total pit stop time is about 27 seconds, but you need of fuel and you need 10 seconds to change tyres. So if you made your first stop 16, then you're going for 11 at the next. Tiny bit of a tap.
She got some help from Rain Campbell, unfortunately. So there's potential for race control to be looking at that. Just a better exit for Campbell, but it's still on you to stay out of the rear of the car ahead. So Colangelo will be none too happy with how that worked out for her. Now, you mentioned a spinner on the lane potentially, David. Do we have any idea who that might have been?
Warboys has got a long lane time for his stop time. No. No. It was part of a pack.
Yeah, Warboys overshot his box just a little bit, I think. So, unfortunate for him. I did see Darren Lobb on the blower to race control. Yeah, lock up on the way in there for Blake Warboys. We're still looking, but yeah, that might be a mystery for another time. For now, we have moves into the pit lane from the leaders. Anderson, Down, and Myers all in. Maloney and Jones staying out. We see Colangelo in the pits getting some damage repaired as well. Now, who's going to win the race out of pit lane for the effective race lead here? Anderson had the quicker run through last time by. Of course, he also had a 2-lap undercut on Madison Down. This time they pit at the same time and they come out more or less level, but Down back into the race lead as Rehan Leonage on fresh tyres goes to the fastest lap of the race. And look who's right behind them. Rattray White. Man, he's played this very well, hasn't he? Well,
yeah, and again, like longer first stop means you go, oh, gee, he's sort of playing with the top 10, but then gets that quick second stop, comes back into the picture after good pace on long stints, and yeah, here he is.
Yep, lay your cards down on the table, and coming into the final 13 or so laps of this race, Zach Rattray White has some pretty good cards. Jake Maloney comes into the pit lane next, and Emily Jones will stay out. Now, the last car other than Brett Loxton yet to satisfy the compulsory pit stop requirement. Rattray White's problem here is that he has tyres 3 laps older than the cars surrounding him. So he might be in trouble in the latter part of the race. In the mid-phase, it's all well and good having slightly older tyres because you can manage the pace and set up for the final stop. But once everyone's completed that final stop, they're going to be pushing as hard as they can to the end. And if you've got older tyres, you've got to just work a little more to keep those tyres in check.
So a couple of things happening, like a new fastest lap of the race in these cooling conditions on new tyres for Andrew Dyson, and a drive-through penalty for Rain Campbell. That contact we saw to Colangelo coming out of turn 5. So things have worked out pretty well for Dyson. I said maybe he was at risk versus Sapstead, but Sapstead, Myatt in the middle of this group, all having made their second stops. Andrew Dyson, Bo Albert, Kurt Stenberg, Darren Lobb, William Sapstead, Jordan Ross, and Jake Burton back there in 15th.
speaking of Darren Lobb and Jordan Ross, they were the two cars that came together on the way into pit lane at the end of lap 35. Seems like a mixture of potentially a little unsettled car from Darren Lobb and Jordan Ross steaming in a little too aggressively. So Lobb was sideways on the way into pit lane, and that has cost him time to Jordan Ross there. Means that, well, actually, all things considered, seems that Ross and Lobb have switched places back since this. So keep an eye out here on Lobb. In comes Ross behind, tap to the rear, and, well recovered, has to be said, from the number 99.
Then who was that was also in and amongst? Was that Dyson? Actually kind of...
I think it was.
Popped both of them and then had a quick second stop. So as Lobb and Ross both checked up, Dyson was side by side heading down the lane on the way to his group, and he's come out just ahead of them, just ahead of Bo Albert, just ahead of Kurt Stenberg as well.
So, Emily Jones has taken her final stop. Last driver up the top of the field to do so. And she has come out behind Ryan O'Sullivan in 8th place. Check back in for a moment, though, with William Sapstead, who was the driver we were focusing hard on in the middle stint. He went the longest on the first stint, and now he's getting into it with Bo Albert and Kurt Stenberg. Darren Lobb right behind him, and they have Jake Burton and Jordan Ross chasing. This could get spicy.
Absolutely, it could. There was just a bit of bumper stuff between Sapstead.
Oh, no! Oh! Holds on to it, only just has to take across the runoff area, but I don't think Bo Albert's going to be too happy with William Sapstead for that one. Moving across and maybe not realizing that Bo Albert was there. And speaking of Albert, he, I think, had to serve a slowdown along with Sapstead as a result of that.
Sapstead realised he was going to cut the corner and then decided, well, I'm going to cut it big time rather than just a little bit and lose all my momentum. So that's what Sapstead elected to do and kind of ended up with 10th place because of it. Yeah, that could get looked into, but they were all bumping, banging on each other. Turn 7 all the way down into the braking zone at 10. Surprised that Lobb pushed Sapstead forward after Sapstead kind of hip and shouldered Lobb out of the way in turn 6 before that. Lobb forgiving and forgetting very quickly, more quickly than I would.
Well, Lobb is one of the more senior competitors. Of course, races in the V8 Veterans Series as well. Change for the lead. Josh Anderson passing Madison Down at 10A, and it looks like he might have gone a bit too deep for his liking. Down is going to fight him here. And this is where it all happens. The battle is on between the teammates. Anderson and Down had been flying in formation and focusing on strategy for the majority of the race so far, but now that they're in the final 10 laps, the gloves have come off.
Down had an opportunity to cross over coming out of turn 10, didn't make a move, stick in towards turn 1. Anderson's got all of this sector of the S's, the twisty bits, to pull a little bit of gap. Track temperature coming back up as well, and this looks like the fuel saving's been done early and mid-stint of the race, and they're pushing on now, especially based on those pit stop times. 13 seconds the first time around, 14 the next time around for drivers like Down and Anderson. I think they have fueled themselves to push pretty hard in these final 10 laps.
Yeah, seems that way, and they have the gap to do it as well. Nearly 3 seconds ahead of Myers and Maloney, who continue to occupy last 2 spots in the top 4. So Anderson and Down can have a bit of fun, try a little bit of outbraking and running side by side, and they won't be in too much danger of losing that lead, but they will have to be careful not to get into each other too much. Myers and Maloney, meanwhile, last spot on the podium. It's a pretty big honour, and both Myers and Maloney have visited the podium many times in the past. Myers, a former champion of this series as well, so there's a lot of form in that top 4. Checking towards the back end of the runners here, Russell Pepperell and James Chastaneuf fighting amongst themselves, and in the midst of it, seemingly catching up a little bit to Angus Lawford.
Yes. Although Pepperell's last lap wasn't particularly hot, Brady Myers moves ahead of Maloney for third.
Oh. Yeah.
So they might have gone side by side.
Yeah, Maloney's been chasing for the last couple of laps, it looks like. A little moment, apparently, for Brett Loxton, who's been in the wars a bit this race. That earlier contact with, was it Ferraris that he made contact with earlier? I can't quite remember, but regardless, this is what happened to him right now.
I think he blends near the podium. Yeah?
Yeah.
No?
Okay. Yeah. He's just letting everyone go. He's realised that he's probably not in contention for any further positions on track, so might as well just let that front pack go and find a little spot to consolidate your run. It looks like he might be able to get a free position off Tom Freer, because Freer towed back to pit lane about a minute and a half ago. I think he brought it back into the pits for a third time, and I think that has finished his race there. What's happened here to Tom Freer?
Well, we're heading towards turn 5, which we know can be tough, and he's pulled aside, out of the way at turn 5. You've also had Logan Barnett, who's been parked for the last 7 minutes. So that might be our 2 retirements of this race so far. You're just looking at how close the race lead was. It was down to 0.18 of a second, crossing the start-finish line between Anderson and Down, and Maloney and Myers. The Mustang has moved to third and moved ahead. Look at Rattray White, Leonage, Emily Jones just behind. Fastest on the last lap of this group was Emily Jones. Ran long some of these stints. 4-lap old tyres, should be a bit quicker than Rattray White and Leonage in this stint. Can she get into that top 5?
Well, she has the freshest tyres of anyone in the top 10, so a lot more to work with than Leonage or Rattray White. Zach, by comparison, has the oldest tyres in the top 10, so this Eclipse number 17 has got a lot of work to do for the last 7 laps of this race. But there's not going to be any moves here in the first part of the circuit unless there is a mistake. All about traction, all about setting things up for the straights if you want to get moves done. Through these parts of the circuit, it's all about staying in touch. Keep your mid-corner speed up so that you can attack when the time comes.
Great.
I love seeing them bounce.
Yep.
That curb on the exit of turn 5, one of my favourite parts of this whole circuit. I've always enjoyed being able to run right across a curb and bounce my way around a circuit, and this track and these cars scratches that very specific itch in my brain.
The Adelaide Street Circuit is coming, right?
It is.
Yeah, well, if you want to bounce across some curbs, that's going to scratch your itch plenty as well.
Indeed. I'm looking forward to it.
That looked like Leonage defending Emily Jones more than trying to attack Rattray White. Jones is really going to hook up the traction in that curved and uphill traction zone out of 10. Let's see how flat you remain through the final corner here. In qualifying, it looked a little tougher now, kicking up that grass and that dirt.
A little bit more of an angle towards the inside of turn 1 there for Leonage. I think Rattray White might be in a bit of trouble regarding the rear end of his car, but when you're following someone into turn 3 there, it's a blind corner on the way in already. You could see that Leonage had to have a couple of goes at turning in there. That might be his undoing if he can't work it out. He's carrying a lot of speed into turn 5 as well, but potentially being a bit too aggressive across the curb. Emily Jones potentially smelling blood in the water here.
Yeah, and the driver sits even lower than this camera, so the curb sort of appears over the crest from this camera, but it appears even later from the driver's view. You can't really see it, like trying to spot a toddler out of a Prado.
Indeed. Well, down to 10A and 10B they come. Is there any move here for Jones? She's going to move out and have a look at Rayanne Leonage. Gets alongside the rear axle, but that's not going to be enough to get the move done. So many marbles on the left side of the circuit there. It's any wonder
gravel.
she didn't spin off. Yeah, gravel being thrown up on there as well through the many adventures many drivers have had in that section of the circuit. Just that little side-by-side moment, look at how much Rattray White's gained from that.
Oh yeah, it's absolutely saved Rattray White. I reckon that's enough of a margin that you can eke that out over the remaining 5 laps.
Sapstead looking at a top 9.
Now, do you remember a point about 20 laps ago where I made our director forecast the gap between these two drivers?
Yeah, indeed. It looks like that has more or less come true. Sapstead has been taking chunks of time out of Andrew Dyson over the last few laps. And Sapstead with a 2-second faster pit stop than Andrew Dyson, and the benefit of fresher tyres, gets up the inside at turn 6 and moves himself into 9th place. Dyson gives him a bit of a hurry up through turn 7 though. It's not quite over yet, and here comes Jake Burton. He wants to join this party. He's brought a 6-pack and a party hat.
Sounds like a good Sunday. Side draft in full effect between these two. They leant on each other big time through turn 7. They lean on each other twice, thrice. Sapstead's got the inside, and you've got to leave it just a couple.
Look at this. Brilliant racing between William Sapstead and Andrew Dyson. Sapstead's been aggressive through that section of the circuit before, and the aggression has paid off. He has put some distance between himself and Andrew Dyson. The problem is now that gap's filled by Jake Burton. Let's see if Dyson has anything to say about that.
I think Dyson's lost it now, but he has a tiny bit of a tap with Stenberg, who gives him a big tap back to say, mate, that's not how I want to race you.
Hurry up again into turn 3. And once again, it's a matter of 2 cars behind quarrelling with each other and allowing the third driver ahead to just jet away. William Sapstead is on for a good finish here if he can keep this up.
Here comes Lob. Oh, Lob turns him.
Oh, no! Oh, Kurt Stenberg gets sent into the wall. Oh, and the front bumper just hangs on by a thread of the Trans-Tasman Camaro. Oh, there it goes. That is a real shame for Kurt Stenberg, the driver with the most mileage of anyone in V8SCOPS history. It's going to be another trundling trip to the end of the race here. So, yeah, Stenberg got caught up behind Jake Burton with the poor exit from the 80, and it looked like Lob just turned him around in response. He gets the power down.
Check up. Lob's like, I'll go around the outside, but that road ends, and it always does.
Yeah. I mean, it's something I see all the time at turn 5, and what I've experienced as a driver myself. You want to commit to that uphill exit because it's so important to accelerate properly when the track goes uphill. Oh,
nearly did it
still
again.
on here. Jake Burton nearly getting into it there with Andrew Dyson. Lob and Ross are right with them as well. There's big dramas here just outside the top 10.
Lob nearly turned Burton on the run up towards turn 2. Andrew Dyson's trying to hold on to this pack, keeping Jake Burton behind, and then we saw what happened to some others in this trailing pack, closing in on it quickly. Jordan Ross watches on, and Bo Albert pulled 2 seconds on them the way they fought last lap.
Yeah, Bo Albert might be looking to gain some bulk positions here in the last couple of laps, as that's a good exit from turn 7 for Jake Burton. Is it going to be enough to overcome Andrew Dyson on the way into 10A and 10B? There's damage incrementally starting to appear on TTR number 80. And Ryan Jones receiving a 10-second penalty for contact with Tom Freer back on lap 40. Round the outside of 10A, Burton defends here from Andrew Dyson, and there goes the curb and a little bit of gravel as well for good measure. Jordan Ross takes advantage, and Darren Lobb sweeps through on Jake Burton to get back into 11th place.
Burton comes back at Lobb, crisscross through the final corner to get to the inside of 1. Behind them, not too far, is the race leaders, we go, bumping on each other in towards turn 3. Lob's got the insides where I want to be there, and it is exactly where you want to be there. Jordan Ross is going to go around the outside, try to pick up a couple more spots here as well if he can.
Slow down for Jake Burton. No, it's more than that. He's exceeded the incident limit. He's gotten a drive-through penalty. Oh, no, Jake Burton. His race gets completely thrown off there by the iRacing automated system. And a great drive in the first 2/3 of this race has fallen apart for the number 80. He's going to have to come into the pits.
That'll give positions to Jordan Ross, Andrew Dyson, and Bo Albert. Stenberg persisting with no front bumper on that thing. It was hanging on by a thread, and then, like all threads, eventually it became unwound. Starting the final lap of the race, Josh Anderson has 4/10 on Madison Down.
Yeah, now the question is, how aggressive does Madison Down want to be here? He's certainly no stranger to making big moves and getting involved in drama. Anyone who's watched recent rounds of Logitech G V8 Pro will certainly know that. But Josh Anderson has been one of the top drivers at Trans-Tasman Racing for a very long time, and it's looking to continue there. All it takes is a proper exit from turn 7 all over the curb there for the 36, and the 77 cannot keep up on the exit of turn 7. Now it's all down to the slipstream. Down flashes the lights at Anderson to let him know that he is coming and he wants this position. He'll be committing to the slipstream all the way down the back stretch. Braking zone for 10A and 10B. Anderson preemptively defensive there. Might have thrown himself off a bit. Down has a wider entry and carries more speed into the corners, but I think that might have just done enough there for Josh Anderson. Struggling to get the power down, but it's all the power he needs to cross the line and take victory in round 6 of V8SCOPS for 2025. Madison Down crosses the line sideways to get second, and how about Jake Maloney and Brady Myers and Zach Rattray White as well. Rattray White catching right up to them at the end.
Dramas at turn 10 between Jordan Ross, Bo Albert, Andrew Dyson, cars everywhere. Albert's got to slow down on the final lap.
Oh, dearie me, that's a lot of drama indeed. Bo Albert will cross the line ultimately in position number 14. And that will be the end of that. It looked like a really big move to the inside from Albert. He was just way too deep into 10A and 10B. Dylan O'Shea keeps Matt Morris behind him there, and Blake Warboys will finish in 18th place as Jake Burton takes the biggest of blows thanks to the drive-through penalty. It looks like Pepperell might have come a cropper of the same thing. We'll have to see, but tough race for many drivers here.
Well, we've seen plenty of contact, but I think a lot of these black flags, incident limit stuff, it's about the track limits as well. It was sort of lap 3 and 4 of the race before some drivers had a valid clean lap. So even from the very first 2 laps, there were drivers that at least had 2 incident points at that section of the race, and then you might need to keep 4 in hand to bump and barge, and we'll take a look at what happened at the fringes of the top 10 here.
Yep. Bo Albert just on the brakes way too late. There was no way he was making the corner there. And well done to Jordan Ross for backing out of it there. Yeah, he did give up a position, but he kept his car preserved. And that is the mark of experience right there. Albert, well, I understand why he tried it, but ultimately, it's a physical impossibility that he tried to pull off there, and he would have to settle for what's ultimately 13th place when Jake Burton's post-race penalty for exceeding the incident limit gets applied, and that puts him all the way down to 24th place. Such a shame for a driver who was in the mix for the top 5 early on. But the results are as follows. Josh Anderson is your victor. Didn't get on pole position, but managed to outrace Madison Down and nail the strategy there. Down kept up with him the whole way, though. A well-deserved second place. Jake Maloney will complete the podium, 0.4 of a second ahead of Brady Myers. Rattray White rounding out the top 5. Solid run-up from 9th. Rayan Leonage finishes in 6th from outside the top 10. Beautiful job. Emily Jones gains a spot. Ryan O'Sullivan losing 3. Won't be too happy with that, but still a top 10 worth celebrating, as is the case for William Sapstead and Darren Lobb, who round out that top 10.
Yeah, then Andrew Dyson took 11th place from Jordan Ross. Jordan Ross avoiding Bo Albert, who ended up finishing 13th, clearing that slowdown just in time. Don't take a slowdown across the checkered flag. And Corey McFarlane was just behind him for 14th. Kurt Stenberg in 15th. His nose didn't cross the line in 15th, but the rest of the car did. Dylan O'Shea in 16th, Matt Morris 17th, and Blake Warboys 18th. Close between all of those drivers on the final lap. Despite a handful of slowdown penalties, what Tal Sorono didn't get was too many incident points to get black flagged and finish 19th ahead of Ryan Jones in 20th. Was it a post-race coming for Ryan Jones?
Yes, looks like it. We'll see how that works out after events conclude here. Ewan Baker finishes in 21st place ahead of Rain Campbell and Dominic Ferraris. Jake Burton put all the way back to 24th with the incident limit penalty being turned into a post-race time penalty, with Lockhart Brownlee and James Chastanerf crossing the line just under 2 seconds apart. Jordan Mazzaroli comes home in 27th place, with Angus Lawford gaining 6 spots to finish in 28th. Coming through in 29th, Russell Pepperell and Paul Young, the first driver a lap down. He was joined by Ocean Colangelo, Brett Loxton, and Josh Horton. Horton sent back to the pits due to connection issues. Tom Freer retiring from the race and ultimately getting disqualified for not requesting a tow from race control. Logan Barnett, the other retirement from this race. And that's going to round things off for the field. Let's bring in our podium drivers, all from Trans-Tasman Racing. Start things off with Joshua Anderson. A brilliant race from you, Josh. You and Madison working together pretty well in the first half of the race, but once we entered those final 10 laps, it was on.
Yeah, well, it was on the whole race, to be honest. Like, we both really wanted to win. So we started fuel saving really early, and like in the middle stint, we were doing high 23s, just basically playing a game of chess with each other. Which is a good spot to be in, obviously. But, then the last 10 laps, it was on. But that was cool. It probably wasn't the most exciting race to watch from a spectator's perspective, but like in the cockpit, it was very intense and pretty rewarding.
Hey, look, every time we went to you guys, we could see the intensity was high, but there was plenty of action throughout the rest of the field while you guys were jetting away out the front. Continuing Trans-Tasman's great form this season, we're going to be going to a very different track next round. Hockenheim Ring will be playing host to the next round of V8SCOPS. It's a billiard smooth track with no elevation change. You think you guys are going to be strong there?
Yeah, I quite enjoy Hockenheim. Remember we raced there in the Logitech series a few years ago and we were pretty strong there. So obviously different car, but I think it's an enjoyable track, one that suits the kind of cars that we race. So yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to having a crack at that round.
Well, another great points haul for you this season, Josh. Thank you very much for joining us. Is there anyone you want to thank before we let you go?
Oh, just the whole team at TTR. It was cool I had a really busy week, so I basically did a few laps in pre-qual yesterday and then rocked up and raced. So for the guys to be doing, they did a lot of laps in pre-qual on Thursday night, and they came up with a pretty decent setup for the track. It's quite a different direction than what we've tried at other tracks. But it's, it was cool to have such a great team working together. Like, we're very competitive and we want to beat each other badly. But at the same time, we're all trying to have the whole team go well. So yeah, everyone's a legend, and so can't thank everyone enough to be an awesome team to be a part of.
Yeah, well, thank you very much for joining us, Josh. Pleasure to have a chat to you, and well, enjoy your victory. Very well earned.
Thank you.
Josh Anderson there, second place in, first place in the race. We are bringing in second place right now. Our pole sitter, Madison Downs, stood by with David Haynes.
Well, Madison, Josh says that you two were really battling it out from early on, playing the game of chess. And in that game of chess, where did you move your queen first to try to set yourself up in this race?
Yeah, obviously that one was a big time fuel and tyre strategy race for us. We pretty early on in the race decided to go that path of trying to make the pit stops as short as what we possibly could, and it became kind of clear to us in that first stint our pace as a team was looking really good, and it was probably more or less a bit of a race between ourselves. So despite that being the case, none of us want to lose to each other. The first person you want to beat is your teammates. So it was a really close battle, and just tried to manage that fuel, but Josh just got me at the end there. But what an awesome race, and congrats to him on a great drive.
And obviously uninterrupted green running, wearing on those tires, track temperature coming and going a little bit. Do you feel that with the tires, with the tire wear, when the track bounces between 53 Celsius and 39?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for us, we knew that the tyre deg across the stint here was reasonably big, so that was the other advantage to managing that fuel, was you're obviously managing wheel spin and all of that to try and not use fuel. So the tyre deg is so much better when you're doing that. So we're able to manage that fuel and therefore, have that side effect of still having the tyres on the car. The other thing we were thinking about was the threat of rain. Obviously, there was a little bit of a forecast of rain there at one point, a chance of it happening at the halfway point. So we wanted to make sure we could have as much strategy flexibility as possible in case the rain came. So we wanted those tyres to run a long first stint and have that fuel flexibility as well. But obviously that didn't eventuate. It was a green flag dry race.
Well, the pole margin was 0.010 of a second. The winning margin, 0.3 of a second after 50 laps. Is it that fine? The margin's what you've got to find, and how consistent you've got to be to try to next time convert pole to a victory?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, we were pretty much the same speed there in that race, and like you said, qualifying shows that. I mean, we were 0.010 of a second is absolutely nothing. So to try and see what that gap would be at a start-finish line, it'd be very, very small. I mean, from my point of view, bloody awesome race. We probably had several laps in that race that we were 0.010 apart in race trim. Certainly felt like at the end I was trying to get a run, just couldn't quite get the draft where I needed him at the final corner or the final chicane there. But it was just because we were so close in pace. There was nothing in it. We both had a crack at leading, and at the end of the day, Endo got the chocolates there. But credit to him. He's been driving really well recently, and definitely put some of his skills that he's learnt in the past probably 6 months into practice tonight.
Absolutely superb from the both of you, from the whole team. Who supports you and who do you want to thank?
Yeah, look, from my perspective on my car, we've obviously got VRS as a primary sponsor. So VRS is a massive tool for us. It's where we get all our data telemetry and analysis and kind of use those numbers to create the strategy like you saw tonight. Kirapak, Factory One, Simracing is on our cars as well. Penrite, TP Race Design. We've got a lot of people on our cars there, and of course Super Cheap Auto as well. So yeah, we got lots of sponsors on the cars this year, and particularly my car, and they all support me not only with the sim racing but also in the real world as well, in the production cars that we do in New South Wales. So massive shout out to all of them, and of course the whole team as well. Everyone put a lot of effort in this week, and having a 1, 2, 3, 4 for the team is a bloody amazing result. So thank you.
Can't wait to see you at the next round, and best of luck.
Thanks. Catch up.
Well, Madison Down going to be celebrating another podium, and same for Jake Maloney as well. Very intense battle between yourself and Brady, especially right at the end, Jake. Must have felt good crossing the line in third.
Yeah, absolutely. It was awesome to pick up another podium this year. We've been able to pick up quite a few at this point now, which has been really good, and awesome battle with Brady. I think I just had that little bit more fuel so I could push to get past him and then continue saving toward the end. And yeah, it was massive strategy race between the team cars.
Yeah, you guys were drafting off each other and fuel saving for the majority of the middle of the race there. Was there ever any point where you thought that you might be able to have a go at Madison and Joshua?
I think in a period there in the middle stint, I thought we might have been a chance, but yeah, I think early laps not being able to fuel save enough and probably just not driving well enough in those early few laps cost me. And yeah, so we had a bit of a longer stop and come out in traffic. So by the time they were clear, you're never going to catch Matt and Ando with their pace.
Certainly. Speaking of pace, it seems that you've made a habit this year of surprising us in the two-group qualifying session. You don't usually find yourself that far up the pre-qualifying standings, but once you actually get into the race server, you're up there fighting up the top. Is it just a case of not being able to find the time through the week to get the right times down, or are you thinking, okay, I've done enough to get into top split, I'm done?
Well, to be honest, just done enough to get into top split and forgetting about the rule about the two groups, to be honest. I think in pre-quali my computer crashed in pre-qualifying, so I just didn't come back because I was annoyed at that, and yeah, forgot about the rule. But to be honest, both times it's worked. I qualified P3 each time I was in the second group, so it hasn't been a disadvantage.
Yeah, it certainly worked out in terms of the conditions. The track was definitely cooler at the start of qualifying, which obviously played its part. Well, you managed to turn it into a podium regardless, Jake. Another good haul of points here from Road Atlanta, and hopefully we'll see you again when we go to Germany for the next round. Anyone you want to shout out before we let you go?
Yeah, just a big thanks to all the team. I think we're doing a really good job this year, and like the battles between us all are so intense. And yeah, Simrigs for being on the car this year. Awesome to pick up another podium for them.
Yeah, excellent stuff. Thanks for joining us, Jake, and all the best for Hockenheim.
Cheers, guys.
Well, that's Jake Maloney, the third of three Trans-Tasman racing cars locking out the podium tonight, of course, going to the Hockenheim Ring for the next round of the championship. David, we'll be able to see that in just under a month's time, July 27th. It's got plenty of overtaking opportunities, this place. Massive outbraking zones at the incredibly tight hairpin, and a very technical drive indeed. Should be a challenge in the Gen 3s.
Yeah, I mean, Road Atlanta's given us everything but rain and a safety car tonight. So for the racing, the strategy, the fuel conservation, the tyre conservation, a really tough race that shows who can nail every little aspect of these races, and we'll see what the Hockenheim Ring brings us. Looking forward to the giant bottle of oil on top of the pit lane and saying things like Spitzkirche.
Yes, indeed. I'll be looking forward to brushing up on my German as well. Well, thank you very much, everybody who tuned in live here on SimSpeed TV, whether you came from YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, or Kick. We really appreciate you. And, well, we will see you once again in a few weeks' time in Germany. I'm Reese Gardner, David Haynes alongside me in the comms box, Dan Yeaman producing behind the scenes. We're SimSpeed TV. We'll see you next time.
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.